All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take your seats, I want to welcome you here. Glad to have you. My name is Neil Vandry. I'm your officiator here at the Church of Perpetual Life. This church is a science-based church intent upon working toward ending aging. We work with people that are interested in reversing aging, in cryonics, in artificial intelligence. All of these things are components of the Church of Perpetual Life. We meet here once a month. We're here this Saturday. We're going to be again here on June 25th. And we are looking forward to a fantastic event this evening. As we have two speakers, we're going to get things right underway. I'd like to point out a couple of things. If you have not registered as you entered, we'd like you to give us your email address, which we will guard and protect and keep to invite you to future events. Also, we have a lending library in the outer sanctuary, just out this room. You're welcome to sign out a book and bring it back if you see something of interest. And I hope that you're able to come and meet with us again next month. But let's get things underway, and we're going to turn it over to Caroline and her crew. Caroline.
All right. Thanks, Neil. This is a really beautiful space, and when I received the call from Neil a couple months ago and he said, let's go ahead and do this, it made perfect sense, especially with what he just announced. Hippocrates Health Institute is not very far from here. Brian Clement and Anna Maria Clement travel a good majority of their lives throughout the entire globe. So this is a real treat to be here local. We're very, very happy. It's quite the buzz. I see that you're all enjoying yourselves. I know it's going to be an action-packed night. I'm going to start by just making a few announcements, tell you a little bit about myself, and we'll be well underway. So I noticed while we were here that a lot of you came over to the book table. Tonight, after the event, Brian Clement and Anna Maria Clement are both here, okay? Brian and Anna together have almost 90 years in progressive, complementary, well, you call it alternative. But I'm thinking once you add those 90 years up, that probably was the way things were. I think probably some of you can relate to that, right? So a lot of things have changed on the planet in the last 60 years. Hippocrates Health Institute started over 60 years ago. We're celebrating that. And in West Palm Beach, Florida, you can come visit us. It's a beautiful space and a beautiful place. So how many of you are here local from this community in this area? Okay, good, a good amount. Who traveled the furthest to get here tonight? Who traveled over 2 hours? Just curious. Okay, a couple people. All right, well, good. Well, welcome. Brian and Anna speak, like I said, internationally throughout the globe and have dedicated their lifetimes to this progressive and advanced type of understanding. So you're going to have a wonderful time tonight. Now, downstairs we do have some of the books. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. But first, John is volunteering. So if you would like to sign up, I don't know, we brought some magazines upstairs. We also have some lifestyle charts at Hippocrates Health Institute. We believe that 70 to 80% of all disease is manageable based on lifestyle choices. Okay, in other words, that means who is empowered? Thank you. You are indeed. You feel that, right? Good. If you'd like to receive the Hippocrates Health Institute magazine, we've got one that's got the sexy little belly on it, okay? And that is about internal health as it relates to the intestinal tract. A good percentage of health and healing is very specifically guided by that, what we put in and what comes out and how that all happens, okay, happens. So you can have that magazine. We want you to each have one of those. We have a brochure of Hippocrates Health Institute, and additionally, we also have a lifestyle chart. If you decide that you'd like to go to Hippocrates, that also has a gift card on the top of it. Okay, we also have some special advantages for you tonight, so perhaps I'll share that briefly with you. Who's here interested actually in going to Hippocrates Health Institute and has come here to seriously consider it? Okay, I will ask you to come see me after the event, Brian and Anna will answer questions afterwards. We'll do a book signing, like I said already. But if you're interested in the program, we have some really strong advantages for you to consider. But for now, John is going to go ahead and he's going to pass around this. Hippocrates Health Institute has many, many programs. You can sign up tonight, and this is our compliment to you, the magazine. You'll physically receive that magazine for an entire year. You can also sign up if you don't want to receive the hard copy magazine. If you want to just receive the e-newsletter, it is absolutely incredible. The information that you'll get from these two pieces are very, very valued and very, very advanced. We also have a Hippocrates Life Transformation Program, and we have an online program. So if you find that you can't manage, how many of you think that it would be worthwhile to come for a couple of weeks to Hippocrates if you knew that you could reverse time, stop, the actual linear aspect of time, and recreate your life and give yourself a nice boost of energy plus a valuable detox. We all need that right now. So then you'll just check off that you're interested in the Hippocrates Life Transformation Program. We have another benefit for you. In the magazine that you have right now that's got, like I said, the sexy belly on it, on page 30 is Doctor Days. We believe that the doctors and the physicians of the world are the influencers. We are not a medical facility. Hippocrates Health Institute is a place where people come and they learn. It's an educational facility, but it's, like I said already, very, very advanced because it gives you in a short period of time the things that you need to know to really create optimum health. So what do I mean by that? Well, sometimes people have to have an opportunity. They've got symptomology. They need to have some help. Other times people come to actually regain their lives and to have energy for detoxing. So we're inviting doctors to come to Hippocrates Health Institute and explore everything that it has to offer. How many of you have gone to a doctor and wondered if they really knew everything they needed to know to help you? Okay, so we're trying to help a little bit with that. I think it's actually pretty progressive. At Hippocrates, there's a medical director on staff, very advanced. We have a couple of nurses. One of our nurses on staff actually has healed himself from stage 4 lymphoma. We also have one of the oldest standing Ayurvedic medical doctors now on staff. So Hippocrates is a place that you can come, grow, learn, but also receive a lot of important information. We do have some of the books downstairs, and I'm going to just briefly tell you about that. But if, John, you'd like to go ahead and pass that around, because I think I've said what I needed to. These are our gifts to you if you want to sign up, if you decide that you want to add a little something to it later, if you want to add a note to me, or if you need to get a note to Brian or Anna, there's a notes section as well. Please do just take a moment and do that. One of our most popular books, it's probably the most popular book, is Healthful Cuisine. How many of you are on a raw food diet right now or have any interest in that? Y'all had sprouts down there, right? Did you see the got sprouts? Did you like that? Okay, good. Those little microgreens, by the way, they have what's called phytonutrition in there, and that phytonutrition helps on a lot of different levels. So got sprouts came all the way from West Palm Beach, Florida. If you didn't get your got sprouts, get some, okay? It's really delicious. So it's sunflower sprouts, pea sprouts, and then some other things that are sprouted. What that means is they're enzymatically alive. Enzymatically alive, okay, do you think that I'm alive? Right? I have energy, right? You want to eat foods that have energy. If you want to put it all together, this is a great book. Anna Maria wrote it, and the book itself is really simple and easy recipes that you can put together. And I mean, how many of you feel perplexed? Like, how do you put this all together? Some people say to me, oh my gosh, it is so hard. How do you do that? And I'm thinking, it's the easiest thing in the world. Someone was asking me the other day, she said to me, well, how did you do all that in one day? Well, it was really simple. I didn't go to the restaurant and expect someone else to feed me, right? So I saved myself like 2.5, maybe 3 hours alone just by having the time that I needed. Downstairs in my cooler, I have some things in it. Really super simple. I've got some bok choy. I've got some water for hydration. That's about all I'm going to need for tonight. I'm so happy about that. And then I'm going to talk to Sean, and I'm going to talk to Jody, and I'm going to say, is there any way I can get some of those sprouts on the way home? And I'll probably eat some of those sprouts on the way home. So that is how we do it. That's how we sustain ourselves. So if you want to make recipes at home, this is an uncooked way, okay, raw, enzymatically rich, alive, energy, okay? It's energy. We'll have that book downstairs for you, and Brian and Ann will be more than happy to sign it for you. Now, you say to yourself, you make it sound so easy, Caroline. Do I kind of make it sound a little bit easy? Maybe so, okay? Maybe so, I'll be honest with you. This book, Living Foods for Optimum Health, okay, I come from the School of Hard Knocks, and I have to be honest with you. When I first started learning about everything that Hippocrates Health Institute had to offer, I thought to myself, this is an education I have never, ever seen before, okay? I thought that it was kind of like coming from Mars, actually, because everything that I was learning was unlike anything I'd ever learned before, but only to come to find out that it has helped me personally in so many ways. But I'm only one of many. There's hundreds of thousands of people who come to Hippocrates. They come every single week. They come from around the globe, and they come from a huge variety of reasons, okay? But I'm going to share with you some of my reasons, and then we're going to let Gerard over here speak a little bit too. So my reasons were I was 10 pounds away from being clinically obese. I was, anybody want to arm wrestle later? I was chronically fatigued. I'm kind of strong now. I had I was pre-diabetic too. I wore glasses. I had to have glasses because, you know, like when I went to go get my driver's license, they said that you better have glasses. If you didn't have glasses, you weren't going to drive. I couldn't see the road signs. All that repaired itself in a very, very short period of time. And that's available for you too. Now, lurking underneath there was a whole additional host of problems. Okay, can you imagine that? Because I reversed time, put it backwards. And I think one of the greatest things that's happened from that, other than, you know, my father writing me some really heartfelt messages. He's pleased, you know, our family struggled with weight, and he thought that was incredible what I did, losing 60 pounds. And only to come to find out that, you know, most of these things that we worry about, it's not genetically based, but how do we really change the way that we see things and how we really correspond with ourselves? And then how do we listen and learn? At least when you come to Hippocrates, you're going to know that what you're going to be listening and learning about is powerful, it's significant, and that's only half of my problems that I settled, okay? There's actually more problems than that. But anything is possible, and it leaves it up to you. You're empowered. So I want to come on up, Gerard. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. All right, I'm gonna bring this over to you. How does that sound? Oh, go on. Yeah. So talking about defying all odds, I would say Gerard has done that, doing that. He's pretty inspirational. Okay, good.
Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Good.
Okay, good.
Good evening.
Use the microphone because we're live streaming this, so people online.
We're live streaming, so we're going to use the microphone if that's all right. Is that all right? Cool.
Now you can hear me better, I guess. Well, good evening. First and foremost, the gentleman, Neil, I think we should all give it up for Neil. He put this all together. We're all here tonight. Doesn't it feel good to show appreciation, a little bit of gratitude? Gratitude is a very important thing. Talking about gratitude, given the fact that we live in paradise here, given the fact that it's a Saturday night, given it's a 3-day weekend, you all came out to find out information about making your life better. You should give it up for yourselves. Congratulations. And I've been telling you a joke now for about 25 years. I think I finally found the right place to use it. So my goal in life is to live forever. So far, so good. Now, I'm here. Everything I say tonight, no doubt about it. Go to Hippocrates in West Palm Beach. Go check it out. Read the magazines, find the information. Take a ride up there. It's less than 2 hours away. It's actually an hour and 10 minutes away. Take a ride up there and check it out. It's a really amazing place. Give you a good example. I get in trouble when I try and act at 29 years old. I feel better than I do at 39 years old. I get told I'm 49. I turned 59 in March. So talk about perpetual life. Some doctor gave me his opinion. He called it a diagnosis. Not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that I had multiple sclerosis. I Multiple sclerosis is a chronic degenerative neurological disorder. Notice I left the word out that's incurable, because I'm standing here proudly telling you today that I used to have multiple sclerosis. That's like a, thank you. And it all started when I became a vegetarian, 2010, took a ride up to Hippocrates in 2012, found out about vegan, and becoming a vegan after becoming a vegetarian wasn't that big of a leap. It's kind of the same thing. Then a year later, I went in 2013 and became a raw vegan. Made all the difference in the world. As in, things got better. Going raw vegan, no more symptoms. It's actually kind of funny because I should have outed myself that I used to have MS a couple of years ago. I haven't had any symptoms now for years. It took our speaker tonight to say, you used to have MS. I said, yeah, I used to have MS. And that's what it really feels like. I did spend 2006, 2007, I tried all the Western medications, the poisons they give out to people. It took me 2008, 2009 to wean myself off of that crap. Spent a couple of years laying in bed, watching the ceiling fan go round and round and round till I got that out of my system. Then, like I said, I immediately started to become a vegetarian. Becoming a vegetarian, I like being happy, hence the jokes. Happy is a good emotion. You can't spell emotion without the word motion. Motion in therapy is a very important thing. Started physical therapy. Had nothing to do with doctors. For someone with a chronic disease, I've not seen a doctor since 2007. Let it sink in, 2007. No need to see a doctor. The doctor is called Hippocrates. Let food be like medicine, let medicine be like food. And that's the practice I lead. I practice eating all the right foods, going to physical therapy, taking good care of myself, maintaining a good attitude, and enjoying life. I feel very, very happy right now. Perpetual life, I might just live forever. I know one thing, with my schedule, I'm going to bury that bunny. Have a great night, folks.
Great. Thank you so much. That's so inspirational. Tonight, Jeff Gold back here. Tonight's program, just so you know, will be available after the event. So if you'd like to take that home with you. I also have some other CDs, DVDs with some of Brian and Anna's work. Brian Clement and Anna Maria Clement are licensed nutritionists. They also have a PhD in nutrition. Together, they've spearheaded the international progressive health movement for over 4 decades. By conducting daily clinical research as the directors of the renowned Hippocrates Health Institute, the world's foremost complementary residential health mecca, Brian and his team, including Anna Maria, have developed a state-of-the-art program for health maintenance and recovery. The Florida Center has pioneered a program and established training in active aging and disease prevention. With hundreds of thousands of people participating in the program over the last half a century, now over 60 years, volumes of data has been accrued, giving the Clements a privileged insight into the lifestyle required to maintain youth, vitality, and stamina. It's all available for you. Longevity delivers cutting-edge knowledge coupled up with a common-sense, practical approach that will raise your level of health and happiness. I'm just reading a little bit from Brian's book, Longevity. This is my favorite part. Brian Clement is first and foremost a devoted husband and a caring father of 4. Now, we'll have to ask Brian and Anna how many children and grandchildren, because it's really growing, so it's very, very exciting. In addition to daily counseling and research studies, the Clements conduct conferences worldwide. We will be conducting a conference. It's going to be in September, and that's going to be for 10 days. And it's actually, the entire thing is streamed and available for you, which is free of charge. It's therealtruthabout.health.com. Brian is authored, and Anna, they have cumulatively well over 20 books. And like I said earlier, people do come from all over the world. Some very advanced players on the planet come to Hippocrates. It's right around the corner from you. We have our doors open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That is for people who are on the program. Some people come and they're medical doctors and they'd like to receive health education. They come for 9 weeks. A lot of people come for the 3-week life transformation program, which is very, very powerful. It's always changing and it's always advancing. So when Brian and Anna really believe in something, that is what is implemented at Hippocrates. So even right now as we speak, there's new things happening that I might not even be familiar with that are constantly on the forefront of optimum health and healing. So it's a place that we'd love to see you, and on Saturdays and on Thursdays at 12 o'clock noon is a tour, and this last week on Wednesday night we had 200 to 300 people at Hippocrates because there is an event where you can come for community, and the doors are open for you. So I think it's time for you to hear from Brian and Anna, wouldn't you say? Yes!
What an inspiration she is, isn't she? And what a better place. How could it be a better place to be inspired than here? It's wonderful, and thank you for putting this together. It's amazing for us, and it's an honor to be here. Through the years that we've worked in this field, and I started off in Sweden, where I come from, and it's in Europe, it's been so natural to go to places that will take care of you, and many people, of course, would first go to places that will take care of you, but then not to be educated. So it was a pampering deal, and then you went back to old habits. Well, the Institute is about not going back to old habits. It's to be so enthusiastic and so feeling so much better, because you learn from A to Z. What do I need to feed myself? Because the first thing, if you're going vegan, and a lot of you have gone vegan and especially raw, and your family wonder what on earth you're doing now, and how you're going to survive, and where is the protein, and you realize protein is not a problem, and the good thing is that we do everything scientific, so we have blood tests before and after, and we can prove to you that it's not a problem. We can prove to you that cholesterol you don't need medicine for. Most, probably 99% would never need medicine if they change their lifestyle. And so many problems today are taught to all of us that it's lifestyle problem. And more medication are coming out on the market to help us with the lifestyle. And it's like, what on earth is this pill gonna do that I could not do with my exercise, with my walks, with my diet, with my thinking positive? What pill is going to take the place of that? So we kind of been taking for a ride, and eventually that ride, is not good anymore, and we pay a big price. So the people that come to the Institute are eager to be educated, and they are serious. They are serious about changing their life. And we even have 100-year-olds. We have people coming in their 90s and 100s who says, I'm going to change because I'm getting ready for my next career. So, there is no age limit. There's absolutely no age limit, because a lot of times we say, I'm in my 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, and I don't need to change. And a lot of families says that too about their older siblings or mom and dad, and they have their habits, they don't need to change. But when they bring them to the Institute, they are usually more ready to change than the rest of the family. They get it because they were brought up that way. They're like, that's how I was brought up. I had fresh foods, fresh vegetables and fruits when I was a kid. It just comes back. And, we kind of, when we're in a lifestyle of synthetic foods, of genetic manipulated food, of totally cooked and processed food, we get used to that. And our bodies starts to age really prematurely, and diseases come along with all this. And, so when you see the change, 3 weeks is very short time. 3 weeks is just enough to change habits, but you see it, and you will flourish, and people will see it with you too. So I think we're preaching for the choir here, because it seems like a lot of you already have gone on the bandwagon, but I'm sure inspiration you're going to get from Brian is going to help you even further. So have a good night. Thanks.
Well, thanks for coming out on this Saturday night. You know, let's talk a little bit about this American holiday we call Memorial Day. And I'm wondering why we're all so fond of it. It's certainly not we're fond of the fact that we had wars, and it's not that we're fond that people died. But I think what we're lacking in our culture and our society is commitment and dreams. You know, this America that you and I have been blessed to be born into and to be citizens of literally was an extraordinary dream that most of your families actually had to flee someplace in the world because they were either starving or being prejudiced against, or God forbid you were African, you were dragged here as a slave. And the dream came true. We were the first country in the world that liberated people and gave them an opportunity beyond just the aristocracy to live a life of integrity. And so on Memorial Day, I'd like to just spend a moment to remember what the dream really is and not get caught up in the insanity of what you see today. You have the ability as a free-thinking individual to determine your future. Don't let anyone take that from you. So what I want to speak to you about tonight is longevity, and then we're going to give you some particulars. One of the problems that I've seen in the 45 years I've done my work is that everyone is looking for a shortcut. You're waiting for Yale or Harvard or some obscure doctor up in the mountains of Montana to find the latest serum that's going to make you live right. Why? Because you're lazy as hell. And you're not actually willing to do what it takes to stay young. This is not mystical or problematic or confusing. We know how you stay young because there's some clear science that is so well established it's foundational and nobody challenges it. And we're going to review a little bit of that before we get into the nuts and bolts. One thing we know for sure is that we share the planet with millions of other species. Now, most of you don't acknowledge that. Tonight when you're driving home because, well, maybe you won't see it, it's dark. But when you're driving or walking tomorrow somewhere, notice all of the creatures that are around us. Well, in nature, 100% of creatures consume only raw food. The only species that does not or chooses not to eat raw food is a human species. Now, if that doesn't have a profound effect on the way that you're thinking, obviously you don't think. Number two, we started to recognize a number of years ago that a possible good marker for aging is telomeres. And I'll describe what that is in as most understandable way as I can. It was my wife's country of Sweden, as every scientist in biology and doctor in research couldn't figure out why we age. Because here's really the way the body should work. You have these bones, and they're really interesting. And inside of these bones, they create something called stem cells. Now, stem cells are what really made me once again believe in God. When I realized what a stem cell was, I said, hey, there has to be a bigger plan than what we think. Because these cells are constantly coming out by the millions to fix parts of your body, either when they wear out or when you injure yourself. So if I get a punch in my arm, my cells start to die. Within a second, stem cells come out, and they're like little children, and they say, what do you want me to be? Do you want me to be the arm? Do you want me to be part of the heart? The heart regenerates in 30 days. How many of you know that? So we literally take your heart out and analyze it here and put it back into you and come back here 30 days from today and take it out. Not one cell is in the heart that's there. Now, so you're constantly regrowing. So the biology people and the longevity people started to say, well, what's going on? Because in the perfect world, as a cell dies, the new cell comes in. And then the Swedes said telomeres. So the RNA and DNA, which, by the way, you know, if you listen to scientists, they all dazzle you with information, but we're just in the early stages of understanding this, by the way. Most of it's speculation more than it's anything else, and almost all of it's wrong. Over 90% of it's wrong. What they actually are telling you, for instance, your future, the length of life, and diseases are created by DNA. So a number of years ago, about 15 years ago, I was lucky. A good friend of mine used to work at the NIH, a renowned doctor. He's a great surgeon, but he knows as much about the field of natural and legitimate health care as I do. And he said, "Do you want to talk to the guy?" And I said, "Who's the guy?" And he called up a gentleman in France. And I happen to love the French, unlike most of you. I love France. I think France is great. They don't put up with any crap. Every time I fly into France, somebody's on strike. Here we're sitting down eating beef jerkies and with a clicker in our hand. Oh, we'll let the government take care of it. No way, they just take it. So what happens is he gets on and he says, "I know why you're on the phone. You wanted to ask me about disease, all forms of disease." This is a man that helped to write the genetic code. And he said, less than 5% of diseases, and I will add to this group, longevity, comes from the DNA and RNA. It's epigenetics. Now, what is an epigenetic? That's the real science today. Yeah, up until 10 years ago, Europe used to look at America as daddy, and granddaddy and great-granddaddy. So everything we said in our scientific community said, they went along with. And they recognized that the pharmaceutical industries were using genetics as a marketing tool. They pin you to the seat. I mean, you know, when you're in there, they don't say the words, "it's hopeless," but when they say it's genetic, they might as well say, parentheses, "hopeless." And Europe said, "We've had enough." So they jumped off the train of economic gain. And they said, "No, we're going to study legitimate." Now, epigenetics means the way you think, your environment, the way you eat, the relationships you're in, the clothing you wear, the water you drink, all of these things, and on it goes, that literally affect your longevity and your health. So the Swedes were the first, and they showed us that these little tails, for the lack of a better term, could possibly be a way that we determine your biological longevity. So yesterday we were talking to a woman on the phone. She got all excited. She said, "I had a test, and I'm 43 years old, and they tell me I'm 29. Now, if this is true or not, we don't know, but it made her feel good, right? I'm afraid to do mine. What do you mean I'm not 18? And as this gets shorter, well, no matter if you're 29, you could be 89. And sadly, from all the literature I've read on this, most 29-year-olds are like 79-year-olds and 89-year-olds. And so those of you that somehow think you don't have to participate in living and preventing disease, you shouldn't be here tonight. You should be in Disney World, because they'll tell you that some doctor will create a serum so that you can live a long time and not have to change your diet, not have to think, not have to do anything in your life. But I'm here to tell you the truth tonight. So as we said, we have a combination of almost 90 years of work on the front line of what we call absolute cutting-edge, legitimate health care. Anna Maria, when I met her in 1978 in Stockholm, Sweden, I was blessed by God because I instantly fell in love with her and found that she was directing Europe's most famous center on inflammatory disease. And unlike in this country, where constantly the pharmaceuticals attack us and fabricate stories about us, and we now know 500 other people in this country that are really trying to change the face of healthcare. In her country, the government came in and supported the center and started to send Swedish citizens. And I asked a parliamentarian in 1982, "Why do you do that?" to see his response. He said, "Americans would like to think we're nice people, and we are, but it's purely economic." He said, if you can reverse a disease and pain for a person, we save an astronomical amount of money. But here, by the way, the system is so sick and so broken, but the healthcare system is representative of the most broken and the most sick, that literally one hand pays the other. And there's a third hand, by the way. This is really a mutated process, because the first hand is the food industry that literally gets you sick. If you don't think that gets you sick, I was telling a story to a colleague of mine 2 days ago. I was in Norway speaking 20 years ago, and a good friend of ours, a really extraordinary medical doctor, who's sort of like the Norwegian version of Mother Teresa and Patch Adams together. So there's 200 people in the lecture, and at the end of the lecture, about this far from me, he put a McDonald's hamburger. And he has a great sense of humor, but I think, what the hell is he doing here? So I said, why did you put that here? And he said, I want to tell you that 12 years ago when I graduated medical school, I bought this that day. And he opened it up and he showed the hamburger, and it looked exactly like you'd buy today at a McDonald's. And I said, in front of the group, I said, how do you know to do that? And he said, quite simply, the professor 2 weeks before that was one of my favorite professors in medical school, showed us one that was 25 years old. Now, this is what you think is food. And another thing you'd like to do is believe the latest trends, For instance, this week on The Real Truth About Health, and if you don't get enough of me yelling at you and actually challenging you today, there's over 200 hours of me speaking on a wide variety of subjects over the last 5 years. So for free, you can get on The Real Truth About Health. And what Caroline was alluding to is 3 years ago, we began giving free major conferences with the top people in their field. And the criteria for us to select the top people in their field, the women and men, is that they will not back down. They will never say anything or compromise anything. They will only tell you from their heart the truth. So we have the leading authorities on, for instance, a fraud we call organic meat. It's complete fraud. How many employees does the United States government have in that? Not one, zero. There's not one inspector. That's a self-regulated business, if you know what that means. Just like the FDA is a self-regulated business that is in the pocket of the very people they're supposed to regulate. 60% of the salaries that are paid to the people that work at the FDA are given to them by Monsanto and the drug companies. Now, if you think you're getting legitimate information, it's sort of like ironic when I see FDA approved. Well, that's a sure sign you better run in the other direction. They had me on Fox News. It was a little hard for me to go on Fox News, but I did get on. You can be on national television. I'll even talk to idiots sometimes. And basically, they wanted me to come on because I wrote a book years ago called Supplements Exposed, where I actually show and prove that over 90% of supplements are deadly dangerous for you to take. I'm not saying don't work. If you take them, you're going to get sicker. You're going to age more. And many of you are taking those supplements. Because we're not talking about 9%. Let me repeat, it's 91% to be exact. Most B vitamins, over 85%, are literally made out of coal tar. Driving on 95 here tonight, I was driving on coal tar. That's a road. Vitamin E, which by the way is remarkable when you get it in green leafy vegetables or whole food, is generally made out of turpentine. And I'm sure you're taking it, because most of you look at the price, not the quality. So you go to Costco, hey, got it at Costco, I got it cheaper, but you may die from the turpentine, doesn't matter, it's cheaper. And Dr. Schmuck from the University of Stupido said I'd live longer with vitamin E. Because you want to live longer, but on the cheap. Tonight I'm going to give you the cheapest way to live longer. But you don't want to do it because it doesn't taste quite right. It doesn't taste like I like. You think I liked this food when I began? Hated it, loathed it, but guess what? I learned to like myself enough I started to eat it. Now I love it. Yes, the body's like screaming and yelling and saying, hallelujah, the idiot finally woke up. He's not eating that thing that he bought at McDonald's 10 years ago. But by the way, at one point, if I were doing a lecture 46 years ago and he put it there, I would have eaten it before the group saw it. So as these get shorter, we now think, we're not positive of this, Dr. Blackwell did the most work, Dr. Blackwell is at the University of California, San Francisco now. She won the Nobel Prize for telomeres. And if you really want to read about this, don't read the second and third and fifth most important person in this. Read Blackwell's work, and you can get this easily on the internet now. And she's impressive. A colleague of a close friend of ours is working with her directly there at the University of California. And they're even challenging. Real scientists, by the way, challenge their own hypotheses. They don't literally get involved with something and think that that's what they're going to make a living on the rest of their life, unless they're the corrupt scientists, which are, again, 85 to 90%. They're still, do you realize what I found in 1956? Who gives a damn? I want to know what you found in May of 2016. That's the problem with academia and education today. They're still rehashing stuff from 100 years ago. And who's the smartest one? The one who can actually memorize the best? Or the woman and the boy in the back of the room that are throwing spitballs because they're bored shitless from repeating the same thing like a parrot? So this is why we have problems in science today. This is why medicine is broken. Poor medical doctors, 18, 19-year-old kids, you think they say, oh, I want to go to school 12 years to make money? No way. So don't blame the doctor. Blame the system. These boys and girls, I meet them. Bright-eyed, bushy-tails, good intent. But then they get in there, they don't realize as much as they pay, half of their education is being sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, by the time they get to the end, now they're young people, they're in their mid-20s. The savvy ones say, oh my God, the answer for everything is a prescription pad and a pill. So they reduce everything to a pill. Like psychiatrists don't even talk to you anymore. And when they couldn't sell enough psychiatric drugs through psychiatrists, because psychiatrists have a bad name. I don't go to a psychiatrist, so then they get the GPs who know nothing to write the prescriptions. And now they've made the #1 medicine prescribed in America what? Psychiatric medicine. They've convinced all of you that you're nuts. And most of you are, but they've convinced you. That's the bad part of the whole thing. So you're on an antidepressant. It used to be when I was a kid, when we wanted to find dope, we had to go on the street, dark alley somewhere, there was a guy back there, No more. You go into the guy, he's dressed really well, may have an Italian suit on. You can tell he's the drug pusher. He has the stethoscope. He never knows he doesn't know how to use it. And if you've noticed, when I was a kid, the only people that took heroin were the lowest. My grandfather used to drive me to the Bowery in New York. Little Irish guy, Dan Daly. And he said, kid, you better get an education. You're going to end up in the Bowery. Holy shit, it scared me. I'm like 5 years old. I remember I'm like 6 years old. I see this guy with a needle in his hand. I said, I better be I went back. I wanted to be the best kid in second grade. But now, 80% of heroin addicts, by the way, started with their doctor prescribing something worse than heroin, OxyContin, oxycodone. Shame on America. I feel bad for the men and women who have died for this country, what we've allowed to happen in this country. And if you think this is a political season for change, it's the same old thing, just louder. The same old thing, just louder. Let me tell you now. Change happens with the people. It doesn't happen with leaders, especially when the leaders need $1 billion, $1 billion with a B, to run because of your damn Supreme Court that should all be in jail for that. Every one of these people who voted that you could spend as much money on elections as you can, everyone that voted, they should have gone that day, taken them, put them in handcuffs, and brought them to jail. You think that's democratic? How many of you have a few $1 million to donate to somebody you trust? You follow what I'm saying to you? It's the corporations that have that. So longevity is something much bigger than waiting for somebody to discover a way that you don't have to do anything. It's you doing everything you possibly can. So the Swedes showed us why that gets shorter is eating too much. So we forget that part because they're now, as soon as they discover Blackwell's work, immediately they're trying to find drugs. rather than listen to the first people who discovered it in Sweden. They said, why we shorten the lifespan is because people are eating too much. Now that ought not to surprise us, because the first time we ever discovered that was at the birthplace of nutritional science. You know where that was? Birthplace of nutritional science was 1929, and it was in New York State at Cornell University. There was no such thing as nutritional science till 1929. First nutrient was only discovered in where? London, England, by young Dr. William Fletcher, who literally single-handedly discovered the first nutrient called B vitamins and wiped out beriberi. The smartest man that ever lived in America, called Linus Pauling, in 1968, created the field of orthomolecular medicine, where he said, after winning 2 Nobel Prizes, every disease has a nutritional deficiency component. I will add, for this group of stargazing longevity hopers, your longevity is determined by what you eat, what you think, how you move, your epigenetics. Do you have a good relationship? And if not, why? What excuse do you have? Do you do work that you don't like? As 80% of Americans, once again polled 3 months ago, January, said, we hate the work we do. You think you want to live a long time when you hate what you do most of the time? How many times have I had people sit in my office, hundreds of times, and it slipped out of their mouth, not so bad I'm dying of cancer because I've had a bad marriage. Not so bad because my child's on drugs. It comes right out. So perception is the number one way that we have to move forward. So I'm here tonight to tell you that there's no easy way, there's a right way. And if you really respect yourself and honor God, and thank God you were brought up in America, not Calcutta, India, or Port-au-Prince, Haiti, or as a slave on a slave boat from Africa 200 years ago, you're going to start to say to yourself, listen, I better start doing something other than whine and complain, rather than come to seminars or conferences like this and go home and do absolutely nothing because you're a food addict like I am. I'm a recovering food addict. I'm a recovering sugar addict. Every one of you are sugar addicts. Every one of you are food addicts. Don't give me it's ethnic. Sure, it was ethnic. My problem is, I liked a lot of people, so every mother I knew thought I was skinny, even though I was overweight and obese, So I went to the Italian home, the Jewish home, the black home, the Irish home. They fed and fed and fed, I kept going. How many of you relate to that? No matter how fat I got, it didn't matter. They'd always say, hey, you're getting big. Well, I noticed that. So let's talk a little bit about what I've discovered somewhat, we don't have a lot of time, that I consider powerfully important information. The toughest opponent of all is the one inside your head. So when people come to Hippocrates, they think all we're going to talk about is changing your diet. And when I was young and naive 45 years ago, I probably would have done that because I thought if you changed the diet, everyone would get well. Then I watched a lot of people die, eating perfectly well, because they weren't happy. Do you follow me? Now, the problem was we prolonged their agony because they lived longer when they ate well. So they were really like, oh, kabitching, I'm sick, I'm dying, and die more. Want to die quicker, What way can I die? So we always say it's head first, not food first. Now, it took me a long time. When I changed my diet, which I did, boom, like that. You think I just stood up straight and did it perfect from that point on? I would sneak and eat crappy food at first, because I still hadn't changed the way I saw myself. Did I see myself as worthy, worthwhile? Did I see myself the same way my loving mother saw me? No. I saw myself as broken, inept, and incompetent. And many of you sitting here feel the same about yourself. Rather than say, okay, I have those problems now, but I'm going to make myself confident, strong, and capable. And that's what we have to do. We've got to change it. And at first I couldn't do it. So my mentor, right here, by the way, my mentor when I did this was right here in Hollandale, Florida. And she had reversed decades before catastrophic disease, and she put me under her wing, and that's why I'm standing here in front of you today, Lillian Galton from New York. And her generation in New York, out of the ghetto, the Jewish ghetto, had to yell to be heard. And so when Lillian spoke, she never just talked, she would speak like this. Hello, I'm Lillian! How many of you remember that generation? We were like, beautiful. Come over here, what are you talking about? You know, sit down, shut your mouth, she'd say. She was quite effective, though. You know, I'm like 20-some years old. And I'll never forget, she says to me one time, you know, I was just like stunned, because being Irish Catholic, everyone I had ever seen who had cancer was in a casket. And we had a lot of family. You know, the Catholic Church did a good job telling, keep making love. Don't use prophylactics. How many of you are Catholic here? You get brought up, you get it, you know. Boy, they had a lot of babies. My uncles and aunts, 10 babies, 15 babies. They weren't in love, but they had all these babies. The priest said, that's a lovely thing. You had another baby there. Let's bless you. Only time they got blessed because we were in the bar most of the time. The other time. Got to laugh about our craziness, huh? No wonder you're all on Prozac. Start to realize what's going on. Your thoughts affect your cells. Now that used to be sort of a 1960s, you know, new age. Today we have the data. So at Stanford University, Oxford University, Cambridge University, a book I'm writing now will outline and show you the cutting edge and the future of what this is, quantum human biology. We know that your thoughts instantaneously. As a cell dies, new ones are being born called stem cells. The DNA and RNA are immediately affected by your thoughts, immediately. Not maybe, not possibly. It doesn't take generations to change, it takes minutes. How many of you do not know the story of a husband and wife that were married 50 years? The husband dies, the woman dies 2 weeks later of a catastrophic disease. That, by the way, she was at the doctor's a month before she didn't have. That's called constant transformation of what occurs through consciousness and the way that you use consciousness. So this is what we work with. Every guest that comes to us gets psychotherapy. Now, we've been blessed because we have 3 gifted psychotherapists. Not good, gifted. These are not the people who sit down and say, let's talk about your problems and make more money. Okay, come back again, we'll talk about your problems. Most of the people in psychiatry and psychology are nuts. If any of you are those people, leave now. Not really. So, you know, have you ever talked to some of these psychiatrists? You know, it's like that. Why did they get it? Why did I get? I was fat. That's why I got to be a nutritionist. Yeah. They were nuts. That's why they became psychologists. Everything in your life is a reflection of a choice you have made. If you want a different result, make a different choice. Now that's perplexing and confusing to most of you, but it's genetic, and I went to 10 doctors, and they all said I'll always have it, and my mother had it. Did your aunt have it? You ever get those papers? Who had it? Did your neighbor have it? Did your aunt have it? Did the guy you went in the taxi with in 1958, did he have it? Oh, I must have caught it. No, you did it. Big difference between transmitting these things and creating these things. You know, I was talking to a guy that all of you would know on the phone, Steve Jobs. And, you know, he's sort of an awkward guy to speak to. If the guy would have given up sugar, he would probably be with us today. You know, most of you don't know he lived 8 times longer, but he just couldn't get off the dope. He couldn't get off the sugar. So he had a good diet, but it was mostly sugar, mostly fruit, mostly carrot juice, mostly. And when I was in the conversation, because I'm like atechnical, whatever the opposite of he is, I was, believe me. I was like the before picture. If I turn on the computer, I'm like excited for 4 days, telling my kids, you know, I could turn on the computer. When the program was done, I shut it off. I get my 2-year-old grandchild, we have 6 now, they come up, they know everything. You ever notice that? Yes. Don't get a teenager, they're too old. Get the 2, 3, 4 years, they know, they're born with it. I mean, I think if there's a heaven, like they must have classes in heaven for these kids before they come. They have like all the professors from MIT there teaching these kids. And here's the new platform. It's not out yet, but it will be here in 10 years. But you have to make choices that not are based upon what everyone else is doing. Oh, the paleo diet. Now we're on the paleo. Oh, it was the blood type diet. Oh, it was the Atkins diet. How about, the diet that every other creature with your body should be on, a plant-based diet? How about what we've proven for 60 years with hundreds of thousands of people, with clinical research, with blood tests? And we don't get easy cases like hospitals. After the hospitals fail and the doctors fail from all over the world, they come to us, and tens of thousands bring about recovery. And by the way, none of us age the way the rest of you do. So you can listen to the latest theory and philosophy, the easy thing, or you can look at facts and truth. It's up to you. I know when I wanted to join a team in 1975, I went to Hippocrates because I said, hey, who's doing the work that is real? Not the latest flash in the pan. You've got to make choices based upon common sense, not the latest fad, what everyone else is doing, what your holistic doctor who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about 90% of the time is telling you. They read the latest book. I notice that. I watch the trend, whatever is the most popular. The other day on The Real Truth About Health, we're talking about a book that's number 7 on Amazon. If you heard the diet that this couple, by the way, have no background in nutrition, they just have an idea. They have good publishers and probably the meat industry, because the paleo diet was paid for lock, stock, and barrel, happens to be by the Texas Cattlemen's Association. The same exact ones that went after who? Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey said to my good friend Coretta King, I'll never talk about food again. And she hasn't on her programs. Went through years and millions of dollars. They put her through the coals. So this couple said, it's great to fry bacon and eat a lot of it. It's great to eat dairy food. Don't take any plant-based food if you want to be healthy. I said, come on. Why these things become popular? Because people don't want to change. You want somebody to tell you what you're doing, which is outrageously bad for you, is good for you, rather than say, you got to do something maybe you don't like at first. Now here's cancer rates. Lillian said to me, you know that 1 out of 7 Americans are going to have cancer? When Lillian said that to me, that was the day I said I'm going to work in this field. Because I could count. I wasn't really good at math, but I had 2 brothers, mom and dad, and 4 grandparents. So that was more than 7. And she said, 1 out of 7 Americans are going to have cancer. Well, I would dream of the day that was today. Because it's actually 6 out of 10 Americans will have cancer now. And who gets more cancer? Age groups? Youth. The ones who have the most cancer today are the youngest among us. The number 1 killer of our babies below 5 is brain cancer now, not accidents. And we sit back with our clickers and our organic potato chips, and we say, somebody will take care of this. This is real, people. It's real. Number 2 killer, accidents number 1, kids below 18, is leukemia and brain cancer. And this is what I've seen day after day, week after week, the mounting amount of cancer. Now look at the numbers. Canada, by the way, is the first country in the world. Any of you from Canada originally here? Well, no Canadians, they all went back. Got a little humid for them or something? They love it here in the winter, right? Where are these asses now? They all run away, like in April, We're here enjoying great weather. Isn't this the best May you remember in life? So, unbelievable. It stays like this, we won't have to go away in the summers anymore. Maybe it will shift. New York is going to get hot, and we're going to be fine down here. No humidity. No. What's humidity? I exaggerate. When it's 100 down here, I always say it's 50. When they come down, I say, this is an odd stretch. It's 100. But 2008, by the way, Canada became the first country in the world that the number 1 disease that kills them is cancer. They actually supersede us. They actually die. We still die of heart attacks. Now, very soon, it's almost cancer. The last 2-3 years, we're almost dying from cancer more than heart attack. So between cancer and heart attacks, most of you are going to croak. But look at these other countries. But notice one thing, you don't have any poor countries where people eat plant-based diets. Every one of these countries happen to be countries that consume the most animal-based foods. And by the way, why animal-based foods are bad is you were never supposed to ingest them, but worse than that, animal fat loves heavy metals and deadly chemicals more than anything else. So you want to have condensed heavy metals, condensed chemicals, eat animals, drink milk. It is amazing, amazing to see. People don't get that. Today, more than 95% of all chronic disease is caused by food choice, toxic food ingredients, nutritional deficiencies, and lack of physical exercise. What percentage of the American public and European public and Canadian public exercise adequately? 5%. So even those of you that exercise, I'll challenge you, you probably don't exercise adequately. If you're not doing 35 minutes of heart-pounding, sweating aerobic exercise 5 days a week, that's minimal, by the way. You're not doing enough. You're not lifting weight an hour and a half, lifting weights an hour and a half, 3 days a week, you're not doing enough. And the old guys like me and my wife, you better be stretching every day. People below 40 better be stretching 3-4 days a week. Now these are what we call minimal. And we're not the experts in that. Dr. Kenneth Cooper and our colleagues in Europe are, and this is what they do their whole life. And we know that just to maintain. So you want to be young? I just told you, this is as important as food. You cannot be healthy without what I've just said. So are you lifting weight an hour and a half a week? An hour and a half, 3 times a week? Are you doing sweating, heart-pounding, aerobic, at minimum 35 minutes, 5 days a week? And are you, in fact, stretching, as you get older especially, every day? And if not, you are going to become decrepit and age prematurely. Now, too much exercise, on the other hand, ages you much quicker. The work that was done 22 years ago at the Cooper Center down in Texas stunned him, where they looked at former Olympic athletes who were all gold medalists from all over the world. They looked at 28. They were dying catastrophic diseases in the 40s and 50s. Why? They weren't nourishing their body and still exercising at 40 and 50, 6-7 hours a day. They thought they were 18-year-old kids. And we go back to 1954 to know what that is. That was Dr. Harmon, another American. 1954, he said, all diseases come from free radical damage. So if you're not nourishing the body with now what we call antioxidants, that come from what? Supplements? Food, plants, food. Now we can get the antioxidants out of the food, but the reality is the best way is to get it from the food. Well, I don't like salad, so I don't like the taste of juice, But you want to live a long time. You want to come on a Saturday night on a holiday weekend to listen to how to live longer, and I'm telling you, but you don't like the taste of it. I get it, I didn't like the taste of it either, but I liked myself enough. I was having enough fun. If you're not having fun, by the way, you want to die. Now, you might pretend you don't want to die, because it's nice not to tell people you want to die. I want to live a long time. How long do you want to? 200 years. That's good. What are you willing to do? Not a damn thing. In Ireland, 1 in 5 breakfasts come from McDonald's. Isn't that outrageous?
Oh, my God.
Outrageous. Well, 40% of breakfasts come from fast food restaurants in America. So you think the Irish are nuts? You're crazier, because 42% of Americans eat breakfast out of a fast food restaurant. And if you want to live a long time, you know how much breakfast you should eat? None. Because another fact I'm going to give you, nobody's going to tell you this, is that if you go to 101, you're like 18 years old and they teach biochemistry to you and anatomy, physiology, one thing they're going to tell you that we can't change, because this is a fact. Between 11 at night and 11 in the morning, your body's pushing waste out. Now, what my family taught me to do is at 7 or 8 in the morning, get up, and even as a boy, drink coffee, which, by the way, New York Times, who has a lot of coffee ads in there, tell you it makes you smarter to drink coffee. Read my wife's article on that one that she spent 6 months developing. If you drink coffee after that, you're suicidal. Okay. Number 2, we would drink unripened orange juice, which create mass acidity right along with the eggs. Even when as a boy, I would eat 6 eggs at a time. white bread. It was so cheap then. I mean, my family had, like, remember those loaves, like big Wonder Bread? You're wondering what the hell it is. That's what, like 5 of them were $1. 5 of them were, no wonder we ate a lot of bread. And then we'd put them in the egg, you know, the yolk of the egg, we'd put them in there and we'd be eating it, and then you smother everything in butter. And then we'd have dessert. At my house, we had dessert after breakfast. Because the only way they'd get me to eat that other stuff is I'd have to have a dessert. Now, how many of you relate to this stuff? Again, telomeres, they get short. The more you eat, they get short. So what happens if waste is coming out of your body, you get up 7, 8, or 9 o'clock and you eat all this schlock, it's like putting a cork in a cesspool that's trying to push waste out. And then you end up having that back up into your organ system. You become septic, that means poisoned, and literally your organs stop working, your heart is under pressure, and your brain doesn't function. I remember being in a fog all through school. Now, part of it was I smoked dope too, but the reality is I was in a fog till like 11 o'clock. Then we'd eat, I'd be in a fog again till 3 o'clock. We left school, then I'd go home and eat cake, and I'd be in a fog again. Always in a fog. I started to eat clean food, started to move, exercise, dehydrate myself, and all at once, the fog lifted. I said, wow, that's really weird. But most of you don't know it. You're in a fog because you're septic, you're poisoned. Now, this isn't a theory I'm telling you. I'm now giving you a fact. After I've worked with 260,000 people, done blood tests on almost every one of them, what I'm telling you are facts, not theology, not hypotheses, not my feelings, but science, I'm telling you. And you're not going to hear the science, because everyone's a specialist. They're special. I'm a heart specialist. Don't ask me about the liver. God forbid the genitalia. Then you have gynecologist. You know? Don't ask me about is it connected? No, it's just the genitalia. Have to have some humor in this stuff. Cholesterol. Another big money maker. All at once, everyone. So I'm speaking in Canada at a medical school in Vancouver, and the dean was freaking out, pacing back and forth. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. I thought he was angry at me then. And he shows me a paper, a directive from the Canadian government that says, you no longer have to test Canadians. Once they reach 50, put them on cholesterol medicine. So the directive in Canada now, you don't need tests anymore. Everyone 50 has to be on cholesterol medicine. Now, who do you think made that law? Now, this is a friend of mine, Dr. Roberts here. When we kill the animals to eat them, they end up killing us because their flesh, which contains cholesterol and saturated fat, was never intended for human beings. So it's remarkable. Out of all the places, we have researchers and scientists that come. We had a big meeting last week with 3 researchers in my office. They said, it's unbelievable. You have a 50-point drop in cholesterol during the 3-week program on an average. I said, here, you want to see one with a 400-point drop, one with a 210-point drop? The average is 50 points. Now, if you listen closely to the oatmeal commercials, Uncle Ben, or that's a rice guy. What's the Quaker Oats? You know, they put this picture of a guy from like Philadelphia, 1760. Like that's supposed to sell you something? Looks like a guy in drag, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, he better not go to North Carolina. Keep up with the stuff here. Come on. If I'm going too fast, slow me down. I know this is over most people. So what happens is they look at this and they say, if you eat oatmeal for 3 months, you'll have a 2% drop in cholesterol. They don't say, you eat less bacon when you eat more oatmeal. That's how it happens. So like most people say, well, I changed my diet and I improved. It's not because you're eating healthy food, it's just you gave up a lot of the junk. Do you follow me? Like I was a macrobiotic. How many of you know what a macrobiotic is? I nicknamed it macroneurotics. You know, it was great for me because I needed discipline at that point. You got up in the middle of the night. How do you piss? Do you piss to the right? Do you piss to the left? Everything was regimented like this. I actually wrote one of Kushi's books for him, the head of that, called The Macrobiotic Way, with a friend of mine. And what was really interesting, when I looked at this, I said, is this really giving me any? Everything was cooked. Everything was like processed. It was what it took away. It took away the dairy. It took away the meats. It took away the fish. And it gave me, although it was not nutritious, nothing that bad. Now, can you imagine if you take all the bad stuff away and start to give yourself what every other species, every other creature on Earth eats? And we've been actually showing tens of thousands of people fight the aging process and reverse disease for 60 years. Wow, it's amazing what happens. Now look at this, beef liver. When I was a kid, beef liver was called a health food. And they never could give you beef liver. They had to always smother it in fried onions. Because beef liver tastes like poop. Let's be honest with you. You know why? Because it is. The liver literally cleans the blood thousands of times every day. When I say clean, it's a filter. So it's poop, the liver is. And so the reality is they smother it in that. Look at how much cholesterol that has in it. It's like outrageous. If you breathe it, you probably get cholesterol. Reversing heart disease and preventing diabetes. Same thing, by the way. We have specialists. I'm a diabetic specialist. I'm a renal specialist. I'm a cardiovascular. All the same disease. Lower your cholesterol. My colleague, Dr. Esselstyn, how many of you know him? Yes. Esselstyn, we went on a European lecture tour with him last year. And Dr. Esselstyn was funny. He was brought up on a farm, but he was a genius. He was working at the Cleveland Clinic and one of America's top 10 surgeons. And of course, he's living it up because he made a lot of money. So he's out eating beef livers and chicken, which has more fat and cholesterol than red meat does, and you don't know that because chicken's supposed to be good. And fish, which has tons of cholesterol in it, but they tell you it's great for omega oil, although it's not. All of this nonsense, because everyone wants to be moderate. Oh, yes, let's go along with the program. And the reality is Esselstyn ends up with a heart problem. This is 30 years ago. So they said, well, we're going to have to do surgery, and, they said, how about cleaning up my diet? There's no empirical evidence that the diet will help you. If we do surgery, we put a stent in there, you're going to be okay. Now, can you imagine this? They're still telling us that today. He says, wait a minute, he was a farm boy, although he was bright. He said, every time I've observed cardiovascular surgery, that wasn't his specialty, they're pulling animal fat. I'm going to give up animal food. Now, he didn't know anything about it. He didn't know anything about nutrition. He just had common sense. He said, well, I'm going to stop animal food. Oh, could you imagine his friends? You're out of your mind. There's no research. What do you say? He says, okay, give me your 10 worst people. So I think they actually took people that were going to die and then put more whipped cream in their veins. These were when he showed me pictures of this on a screen one time, I couldn't believe it. Completely clogged arteries. 1 year, they completely reversed it. You want to learn about this stuff? Basically, get on the Esselstyn website, look at the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that were all told they need more bypass, more stents, and 100% of them, or 99% of them, reversed this disease. Questions at the end. So what does that take? It doesn't take another doctor. It doesn't take flying to Cleveland Clinic. It takes you making a better choice. Do you follow? It all goes back to your choices, not your genetics. Oh, I'm going to blame my grandma. He's dead, so we can blame him. You ever notice that? You always blame people that aren't here. If they were sitting in front of you, you'd never blame them. Another big problem, a lot of people want to live a long time, but you may not know who you are, because 70% of the world's population lack B12. And the number one cause for dementia and Alzheimer's is lack B12. I'll repeat this to you. The number one cause of you losing your memory is you lack B12. What percentage of the world's population lack it? 70%. That means 7 out of 10 of you sitting here, if I tested you with a real test, a sophisticated test, you would not have B12. It is the number one way for me to give you memory loss. Now, when you also take away essential fatty acids, that doesn't help because the brain's made of fat. And when you take away B vitamins that feed neurons, that doesn't help. And in my book, Longevity, when the Swiss came to me 15 years ago and said, would you write the book? I said, as long as I just don't have to write about nutrition. And so I studied what they were doing at Harvard and other places. And brain use. And have you ever noticed when people are doing wonderful things their whole life and then they retire, they forget what their name is in a month? Because using the brain is like using the muscles in the arm. So it's B12, essential fatty acids, B vitamins, but brain use, which is today luminosity on a computer, used to be crossword puzzles. My wife's father is almost 90. This guy's unbelievable, but he reads 6 hours a day. Thank God I don't know the language. He'd win every single debate he ever had with me, I'm sure. Now look at the other baloney that you've been told. I was told that if I didn't eat steak, number one, I wasn't a man, which is like weird because the more steak you eat, the more feminine you get. What do you think they inject into steak? Female hormones. So why bodybuilders walk like this, now you know. And sadly, the women start to walk like this because as you get more estrogen, your body produces more what? So if your wife comes home after eating steak and starts to yell at you, you know why. That's why in countries that eat a lot of steak, you have more rape, you have more murder, more incest, because it's hormonally whacking you out. Even if they didn't inject the things with that, hormonally it's whacking you out. But how do you think they fatten them up? The ranchers out there in Montana say, well, we sell this stuff by the pound, so let's throw some more steroids in there and some estrogens in there, fatten these babies up before we bring them to the slaughterhouse. What do you think? Somebody's saying, oh, let's over this and make it a healthy thing because the people in West Palm Beach and people in Fort Lauderdale are going to have healthy food? Again, complete fraud, the organic meat industry, zero, no such thing, fraud. So 100 calories of steak give you 5.4 grams of protein. Broccoli, the same amount, gives you double. But the broccoli industry doesn't have a lobby. Imagine, senators and congressmen up in Washington entertaining the broccoli industry. But the cattlemen, they look impressive. They come in with those big hats. They send 6-foot guys up. They smoking Marlboros. Hey, you want to talk to me? Shit, yeah, of course, Broccoli industry is probably some skinny guy that's a vegan, You want to speak to me? Let's talk about peace. Bullshit, Let's go over to the cowboys over there. They're going to bring us to the bar, Smile, it's funny, but this is exactly what's happening. How many of you know last year, without your knowing it, your government took your tax dollars, put $400 million into advertising to the American public to drink milk and eat dairy food? Did they ask you if they could do that? This is lobbies. This is what they do. You keep saying, why do they let them make McDonald's that can last 30 years and they still look the same? Because I have a lobbyist, by the way. Hippocrates bought lobbyist. But thank God she's one of us because I couldn't afford her otherwise. And this lobbyist that works for Hippocrates in the last 5 years stopped them taking away your rights for supplements twice. And when I went to the real money people, not me, I run a nonprofit, the billionaires I know, and I started to talk to them, these are billionaires that make money in the health food industry, they waved the flag and said, this isn't going to happen here. Well, it's happening here. We only won recently by 1 vote, or they were going to take your rights away to know you're eating genetically modified food. And by the way, we have an ongoing expert series at Hippocrates. You live very close. I know most of you are too busy with your clickers and eating potato chips you buy at a Whole Food market. But if you're interested, by the way, this coming Thursday we have the world's leading authority on genetically modified food for free. 2 months ago we had the world's leading authority on the medicine in raw food for free. In January, we had the world's leading authority for free, and by the way, you're invited for free every time to come and see, on water. Why? Because we bring this community together, because we're going to win. Lies do not win in the long run. Deception does not win in the long run. And we're getting close to the whole thing tipping. We're going to win, because courageous people in the scientific community have started to say no. We're not going to go along with the program. We'd rather lose our jobs and tell the truth. Many people consider a raw food diet to be radical. Now consider this. There are roughly 1,800,000 species that eat this. It's radical to eat healthy food. I think it's radical to bring your babies through a fast food restaurant, feed them Gatorade, to put sugar down their throat in every form you can. Candy. When I was a kid, we used to have, in those days, people deliver to your house a wide variety of nonsense. How many of you are from the Northeast? We had the Dunkin' man. Dunkin' was, like where they brought pastries to your house. That's when you were so out of touch with reality and so fat and sick, you couldn't even go stand at the bakery anymore. So the bakery guy came and delivered. And I remember around the holidays, this is not a joke, around the holidays they'd bring these things that looked like Dayglow snowballs. Now, I don't know what they are still, but I ate 2 or 3 every sitting. And my parents would say, "Isn't that cute? Look at how much he eats." Rather than, "Shit, I'm poisoning my child." So why do you think the number one killer of babies now is brain cancer? Here's Dr. Esselstyn. Some people think the plant-based whole food diet is extreme. 500,000 people a year will have their chest opened with a vein taken from their leg and sewn onto their artery. Some people would call that extreme. Now, you know this to be true, and I'm not going to make you stand up, but some of you actually never questioned the doctor when they said, "By the way, we're going to cut your whole chest open, we're going to actually saw your bones open, we're going to spread your chest, take an artery out of your leg and sew it in." You never question it. But when I stand and say you should eat plant-based diets, "Oh, that's weird." You got to start liking yourself a little bit, man. Now let's talk a little bit about this. The most important part of food is digestion. You could eat the best food in the world, but if you're not digesting it, guess what? You don't get anything. And the first thing you need to do to digest food is something I don't even do well enough. It starts with a C and it has a W in it. What is that? Chew. How many of you really chew well enough here? Well, you're lucky, because I don't. What are you, neurotic or something? When I was macrobiotic, that was the one thing they tried to teach me that I didn't get in my head. You've got to chew 800 times. Come on, I'm in a car eating a salad on my way to lectures, I'm not chewing. Over 70% of your immune system is where? In your intestinal tract. Now, here's another thing. If you go to Harvard Medical School, you graduate this month. They're teaching the poor doctors the wrong thing. They're telling you the happy juice that makes you happy and clear and sane, serotonin, comes from your brain. It doesn't. 70-80% comes from your intestinal tract. Now, look at the average American's intestinal tract today. Can you imagine what is in that thing? I know one thing, the flora, the fauna, the bacteria that's supposed to be there is not there. And that's where 70% of your immune system comes from. So the first way to get biologically sick, besides the brain, is to destroy the intestinal tract. If you destroy the intestinal tract, you're not only whacking your immune system out, you're also getting rid of serotonin, so it's a sure way that you're going to become unhappy. So now, finally, there's a new arena called nutritional psychiatry. It's going to take a long time for this to catch on, because they make a lot of money with psychiatric meds. But these people are legitimate doctors that are saying, by the way, don't give them more drugs, clean up their diets. Clean up their diet. Now, how do I know this works? Ever since 1969, I've been watching these things happen. People come to us, we change their diet, and magically they're saying, "I don't seem to need Prozac anymore. I don't seem to have these wide shifts or hear voices anymore." Now, it doesn't happen all of the time. There's severe cases, but it does happen in 80% of the cases. So in 80% of the cases, there is not a need eventually for psychiatric meds. Am I really happy there's psychiatric meds when you first have a schizophrenic episode? You bet I am. Because when I was a kid, they put those people in institutions. During the Reagan administration, we threw them on the street, and they're the poor people you see begging for money now. They're not bums who won't work. They're psychiatric patients that America doesn't take care of anymore. Wake up. Don't listen to the bullshit you hear on the news. When I was a kid, this country took care of everyone. And now you call them bums? You call them bums? I don't call them bums. I call them Americans. That, thank God every day I don't have to do what they're doing on there. So a mother tonight, we gave her $5, holding a sign. My husband died, left me with children and grandchildren, and the Government Veterans Association took our money away. Please help my family. On Memorial Day weekend, we've got to start to become self-respectful so that we have compassion for everyone else. You don't like you don't like anyone. You believe the nonsense, you go along with it. Okay. Now look at this wheatgrass. We didn't invent wheatgrass, by the way. The first plant that grew when land came. Now, land was not on this earth most of the time this earth existed. First land that came was what we call the island and continent of Australia. So the first land that ever emerged was continent of Australia, and the first thing that grew there was grass. And wheat grass is part of the grass family, as is sugarcane, by the way. Just been hybrid. So it's the largest one and one of the smallest ones, wheatgrass. And the reality is, look at what we know. There's nothing up there that doesn't have paper after paper after paper scientifically validating what I'm putting on the board. Because the pharmaceuticals, not only do I like to tell you the truth, but if you don't back everything I say, they come after you. Now they can say drugs are going to help you, although 70% of drugs, by the way, you may die from taking. But nobody else has the right to do that. And hopefully nobody wants the right to do that. There's nothing I give you that, by the way, helps you die. Helps you come back to live. Coughs, colds, flus, lung cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, toxins, tumors, ulcers, colitis, constipation, diarrhea, obesity, bad breath, bleeding gums, increased red blood cells, restore fertility, promotes youthfulness, lower blood pressure, increases metabolism, anti-aging. How many of you take wheatgrass on an ongoing basis? 2 ounces of wheatgrass is the equivalent of eating 5 pounds of organic green vegetables. Now, who likes the taste of wheatgrass? About 20% of the population. You're lucky if you do. We're going to canonize all the people that like. I drink it every day and have for 4 decades. I still don't like it. Green juice I like. Wheatgrass I don't like, but I take it. Why? Because I want what you see on the board there. Healthy cells love oxygen. 1923. Anyone know who this is? 31, he won the Nobel Prize. He's renowned. New York Times Magazine, Center Magazine, just wrote a brilliant article on him. You may want to access it if you're smart folks. Just did a Warburg thing and said, he was absolutely the kingpin in the 20th century, and then he went out of style when medicine and the pharmaceuticals started to say that genetics is what caused cancer. In 1923, he told you what caused cancer. And by the way, today we've proven it. The Institute for 60 years has proven it. That when you reduce oxygen by 1/3, you start to create cancer. How do you reduce oxygen? Eat sugar. What kind of sugar? Fruit sugar, carrot juice, beet juice. Not only white sugar. Matter of fact, the number one sugar that reduces oxygen in your body is fructose. Other ones do it too, but fruit sugar creates fat and reduces oxygen quicker than any other sugar. Dextrose, sucrose, glucose, etc. Oh, you've never heard that, have you? Because the natural health industry is not going to tell you that. And you're going to say it's organic. You realize if it really is organic and growing well, it has more sugar? Because the more minerals, the more richness that's in the soil, that's it. So what about giving people with sugar carrot juice and beet juice? And well, we took it out of the diet 36 years ago. And maybe that's why institutions give us awards and say that we have more people reverse these diseases than any institute in history. We're talking about not natural institute. When they walk out of Sloan Kettering, when they walk out of Moffitt, when they walk out of the German Cancer Institute or Stanford and they come to us, they have the potential to reverse what they were told is going to kill them. Because we take away the potential of reduction, because cancer is anaerobic. Do you know what that means? It doesn't like oxygen. Just like mold and yeast and fungus doesn't like oxygen. Well, cancer doesn't like it either. You need to put oxygen in the environment. What are the 2 natural ways you put oxygen in the body? Of course, we use hyperbaric and use other things too. But what are the 2 natural ways you put oxygen in the body? Breathing. How many of you really do that well 100% of the time? Not me. Not me. I know yogic people that you get them upset and they I'm not a yogic guy, you know. But the reality is, the second way you get it is through food. That all raw food, and certainly the greener the food, that's a natural way you get oxygen. Once you cook a food, what do you think leaves it? Oxygen. The fragrance of the food cooking is the oxygen leaving it. Hyperbaric oxygen. 22 years ago, we brought hyperbaric chambers in. I never used it for cancer until about 5 years ago, because I was on the border. You know those stem cells we talked about? How many of you had cancer here, or somebody you know has cancer? Okay, let me talk about that. The only way cancer grows, it's a child molester. And this isn't humorous. By the way, I tell humor to open you up so you listen closer, but everything I'm telling you is prolific. That a cancer of any type is a child molester, because the only cell that will make cancer grow, because cancer had these elongated tentacles that come out, are stem cells. Because it will take this little adolescent that says, oh, I'll be anything you want me to be, and suck it up, these tentacles, and start to grow the mass, or metastasis, as we say. Full-grown adult cells will never become cancer cells, just like you. Tonight when we leave here, I'm standing in my car and saying, come on, little boy, come on, little girl, come over, I'm going to give you candy. What are you going to say to me? But when you were 10 years old, 11, 12 years old, could I have gotten you in the car? That's how nasty cancer is. And so cutting off the blood flow, there's certain supplementation we use that do that. The great story was, we don't like you to eat soy in the normal sense, period, because it's estrogenic. It creates more cancer. But if they highly ferment ripe soy, all of the estrogenic factors go away and it becomes an antigenesis. That means cuts blood flow off. So it stops, or in great part, not total, great part stops the stem cell from feeding the cancer. So there's a product called Haline. And Haline, I never really much liked because I thought the people that sold it were robber. They sell a little bottle like this for $50 a day, and they tell you need a bottle a day. So I sort of stayed away from them incorrectly. Sometimes I make mistakes. This is one of the ones I made, and I'm telling you. And a few years ago, I started to like them because what happened is people are naive. A lot of you are naive. You know, you go to 10 doctors, they all say you're going to croak, and then you go to Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith says, change your diet, change your attitude, you get well, and like an idiot, you go back and tell the other 10 doctors. So they, of course, report Dr. Smith to the government. So they reported, many people, Haline Company, to the government, and they came in to bust them, and they pulled out millions of dollars of research from incredibly credible universities. This is when I started to like them. And they said, by the way, we haven't been harboring money for our own good. We've been validating the science on this. They still wanted to close them, because remember, the FDA have gun-toting agents with helmets. They've gone after my colleague out in Washington State, Dr. Wright, actually held him and his patients at gunpoint in 1992. First big one, and I could name I could do a 2-hour lecture on that. Okay, so with that said, they still wanted to close them because the farms were running the FDA, and they then sent in the NIH and said, disprove all the research. You can look this up. The NIH came out and put a study together. It's like this company paid them for it. They said the average increase in immune system cells is 700% by taking the product. So beside sugar feeding the cancer and stem cells feeding the cancer, if you can cut it off and get rid of the sugar, start eating raw food, that's one of the major core recipes we use, you stop the growth of the cancer. So people don't magically get well. Nobody lives 30 years with multiple sclerosis. Did you know that? That's non-existent. So you're seeing an enigma here. He should have been dead years ago. Part of it's attitude, but then he finally woke up 10 years ago and said, hey, I'm going to change my diet. What's the furthest you just walked recently?
250 feet.
250 feet. And 10 years ago, weren't you laying in bed for years? He was laying in bed, dying, couldn't move, becoming decrepit. His muscles went away. He's walked 250 feet. People that don't have a disease can't walk 250 feet. So how about infrared saunas? So at the Institute, we have 12 infrared saunas. Why? Because right here in Florida, Dr. Coyne, a friend of mine who's now retired, he was the man they chose to do studies on hyperthermia. Now, your government never intended to let American doctors do hyperthermia, as they do in Germany for disease, viruses and bacteria and cancer. But some wealthy Americans got angry. They had to go to Germany with their loved ones when they got sick. So they put Dr. Coyne in charge of 6 doctors at major universities. And after the 5-year study, he came to me and said, Brian, hyperthermia works. That's where they give you anticonvulsion medicine. Heat your body up 6 degrees and it kills disease. He said, tell people they don't need that. Get them to an infrared sauna 20 to 30 minutes a day, 6 or 7 days a week. It works better than hyperthermia once a week. That's the day I started saunas daily. So my wife and I, no matter where we are in the world, and matter of fact, in a week and a half, we're on a plane. We go on a 9-country tour of the world. We're going to be in 9 countries in Europe. Poland, Romania, all of the Scandinavian countries, Holland, England, etc. We go to saunas every day. We never go without sauna. Now, when I'm traveling and when I'm at the gym, it's a normal sauna. Infrared is what you want. Infrared gives you 87% more heavy metals and waste come out of your body. Let me repeat what I said so you get this through your head. How many of us have heavy metals and chemicals? You live on a polluted planet. We all do. So if you want 87% more out, buy one of these extraordinary, inexpensive devices. My father finally got one at 87 years old, a couple of years ago, and I said to him, what are you? I've been after you for years. He said, I'm not feeling good. I said, well, you have to almost die before you get a sauna? I said, we'll use it as a casket. He's been in it now ever since. So detoxifies through stimulates immunity, kills viruses and bacteria, increases metabolism, decreases joint pain, lowers blood pressure, kills cancer cells. Now, again, there's nothing I tell you, major science behind it. Do you hear what I'm saying? In Europe, they put people in heat all the time to kill what I'm talking about up there. How come you didn't know about this? Your GP didn't tell you this? The holistic doctor that gives you chelation therapy, vitamin C, that's a chemical, he didn't tell you that? They all have the same mantra. It's like they all went to the same program that weekend and became holistic or something. You can also get more elaborate. If you don't want to get in, some of you don't like to be in boxes, you're claustrophobic, you can buy these type of units. And when we put people in these at Hippocrates, we put oxygen on their nose too. This girl has never eaten anything but raw food. She's 29 years old. Her mother came to us about 38 years ago, reversed cancer, and all of her children from the womb out has been eating raw food. And I asked her, when I saw her over in Britain, I said, aren't you tempted to eat something other? She said, why? I've never tasted it. It's a pretty smart answer, really, when you think about it. Like my children, if you gave them a choice between a sugary fruit and a green, they take a green. That's how they were brought up. Again, I'm still a sugar addict. Because the first dope pushers you met were your mom and dad. When I was good, I got dope. When I was bad, they took the dope away. So that's formidable. In that point in your life when you're creating patterns, and then you don't feel good and nobody's watching, what do? So look at the other things we know about broccoli as an example. Helps prevent cancer, curbs overeating, boosts immune health, fights birth defects, helps with diabetes, fights heart disease, promotes healthy bones, regulates blood pressure, prevents colds, and regulates hormones. And guess what? The best way to take it is up there. It's a sprout. Broccoli is great, but a broccoli sprout kicks the heck out of broccoli because it's 100% digestible. The nutrients skyrocket. As an example, one of the nutrients called sulforaphane goes up 50 times. 50 times. And so these are the things we know about them. Sprouts. People say, I can't get organic food. Why not? 12 months a year, in the middle of August when it's 100 degrees here, you can grow sprout kitchens in your kitchen window. And guess what? Sprouts are by far the most medicinal food on the planet Earth. Not only does it help cancer, helps premature aging. Premature aging. Premature aging. Okay. Heart disease, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and the list goes on and on and on. An effective way to add raw foods to your diet. Now you juice them. So at Hippocrates we make green juice, and at minimum twice a day you drink these juices, half of it sprouts. And it sprouts 8 times, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 50 times more nutritious than the vegetable itself. Now, again, challenge anything I'm saying. I'm not making this up. Dr. Williams came from the Linus Pauling Institute, who's a world's leading authority. You could have seen him a month ago at Hippocrates on the medicine and food. Guess what? The food industry is after him. They call him a quack too. Because what he's basically said, once you cook a food, it's completely worthless. And here are the medicines that are in the foods called phyto-chemicals. He told us a story. When I first joined the team in 1975, we thought why cancer was being helped and other diseases is the chlorophyll. Then we abandoned that. He said 2 years ago he was brought to China with the NIH. He suspected, and he's so renowned, he's the top scientist in the world in this, he suspected that chlorophyll may be reversing disease. So they went to an area that people had liver cancer. They did a placebo where they gave people no chlorophyll. Half of them they gave chlorophyll. The group that got chlorophyll reduced their tumors in their liver by 50% within 90 days. So why else do you want to drink wheatgrass? Why else do you want to eat salads? Why else do you want to make green drinks? And why would you want to put the phytochemicals that are in the sprouts that are 10, 20, 30 times more in it? Well, because you like yourself. And you don't just come out here because it's a nice thing to get together with a lot of people who want to live a long time. You want to live a long time? I'm telling you how to do it tonight. The immune system. That's how we live a long time. That's how you fight disease. It's your immune system. There's nothing more, nothing less. It's the punch line. Do you realize up until recently, when I go to a medical school, and I basically told them that everyone who's ever gotten well since 1956 at Hippocrates did it because their immune system, you know what they would say? The immune system can't identify cancer. Now, people got so fed up with chemotherapy and radiation, guess what their new work is? Immune therapy. I can't wait to get back to these schools and remember the doctors' faces that were yelling that it has nothing to do with it. Of course everything's your immune. Man is so arrogant. Scientists are so arrogant. We think that we actually know more than nature. Humble ourselves. Relax. We don't have to be better than nature. If we could just understand it, we'd be okay. That's all we have to do. Arthritis and inflammation. Here's how it happens, by the way. It's not because it's damp. Every time I go to my homeland, Ireland, we all have arthritis, it's damp. How about the dairy food you're eating over here? So inflammation, unresolved, it starts to destroy your immune system. It's called anthrogenesis. Direct effect is synergy. You see where the bones are literally being eaten there? This is actually the cartilage being eaten. And this, called hypoxia, happens. It's all because of the animal food that you're eating. Things like turmeric. Eating turmeric's not going to do you a damn bit of good because you're not Indian. By the way, if you're Eastern Indian, it would. Because genetically, over God knows millennia, their bodies adapt a little bit of curcumin out of turmeric. What we do is, for instance, we make one called phyto-turmeric. It's the strongest in the world. That literally has one pill, has over a kilo, 2.3 pounds of turmeric to get the medicine out of it. So you need large amounts. But guess what? The number one anti-inflammatory doesn't cost anything. Starts with a W and has a T and an E and R in it. Water. Water is a number. When a house is on fire, do you throw turmeric on it? What do you throw on it? Water. Nobody tells you that because they can't make. So boosts the immune system, natural painkiller, anti-cancer, helps with Alzheimer's, kills parasites, improves digestion, fights inflammation, detoxifies, and some people think it tastes great. How many of you like that? Amends? We're going to get you together with the people that like the wheatgrass. This is going to be, we're going to canonize. Pope Clement's going to canonize a group of people here. We'll get the big schnauzer. Garlic. When I met my wife, the medicine they were using at the Brendel Clinic to get rid of one disease after another was garlic. I had the privilege in 1976 to direct the original center like Hippocrates, it was almost 100 years old, in Denmark. Their main medicine was garlic. Garlic is amazing. We could sit here and tell stories for the next 5 hours on garlic. But it can't be garlic on a pill. Eat raw garlic, and it better be organic because, by the way, they've been irradiating garlic for 65 years. Most garlic you buy at the grocery store is irradiated, and has been. Colloidal silver, they took that off the market when they made antibiotics. And now, by the way, I'm not anti-medicine. There's times and places for medicine. It's just the overuse, misuse, prolonged use, and crazy use for antibiotics. We became antibiotic resistant. Do you know why? Eating animal foods. They inject so many antibiotics into the animal, when we eat them, our body completely goes crazy and doesn't know how to function with antibiotics anymore. You see, in Pennsylvania, they found a bacteria they can't destroy, an E. coli. They can't destroy. And you're going to see more and more of this happen. But guess what? If they use probiotics rather than antibiotics, they could probably stop these things. But silver, years ago we started to use this for HIV, IVing it, not orally taking it, and also chronic fatigue syndrome. Shocking. But then people started to say to us, by the way, my Lyme's disease went away. And then we started to research it, and it's true. So these are things that literally do things antibiotics cannot do. Eat animal foods, you have these acids: nitrogen, uric acid, sulfuric acid. What happens, it eats the bones up, you end up putting the calcium in the bone into the bathroom. That's where you end up with osteoporosis. Lack of exercise and eating animal foods is where you get osteoporosis, osteopenia, cartilage, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, period. Not because we think so, we know so. But again, what do? They make new drugs. And now one of the swift things is when all the drugs don't work, which they eventually don't, then they give you chemotherapy when you have arthritis. They give people with AIDS, HIV, chemotherapy. That's like somebody's coming dead and you say, hey, you want me to help you? This is the crazy world we live in. For people with hepatitis C, they didn't really want to spend money, so they started to give you interferon. By chance, it worked in 2% of the cases. They finally made a medicine, they realized a lot of people had it, that can work, by the way. So there's a case where I tell you medicine. So if you've never taken any medicine, have hepatitis C, medicine they have, try it, because they have about an 80% success rate. Once you've taken the other medicine that never worked, I shouldn't say never, but didn't work 98% of the time, shortened lifespan, then you can't even take the new medicine, because you've so hurt the what? The liver. So here we go with milk. Now, when I was a little boy, the only thing I ever got free, my wife in Sweden got it free. My Russian friends that grew up in communist Russia got milk for free. They were marketing milk in Russia. It's like I thought that was capitalist. So milk, they say, oh, it's great. It has so much calcium. 100 calories of milk give you 245 milligrams of calcium. Spinach gives you double. Collard greens give you triple. Watercress gives you 4 times, and the all-time high is arugula, one of my favorite foods. We bought some today. Arugula has 1,300 milligrams of calcium. But again, can you imagine them having an arugula lobby? Some paisan, hey, what are you talking about? You don't like arugula? And the guy with the milk, he's comes in with a big limousine, he's going to take you out to drink drinks. What's a arugula guy going to bring you to the produce market? The truth about milk. This was something that we learned, 1990, the most important research in history on what causes cancer came out by Dr. Campbell, probably the most important nutritionist alive today, Cornell University. Said casein, which makes up to 87% of cow's milk protein, is the most significant carcinogen we consume. So is meat bad? You bet it is. What's worse? Milk. Now milk, so I'll give it different names. I know many of you don't really think to the second step. Milk is called Greek yogurt. That's the latest thing they're pushing on you. Organic yogurt, kefir, cheese, My old-time favorites: butter, whipped cream, ice cream. They're all milk. Milk is horrible. The last four I mentioned are double and triple and quadruple horrible because they have more what in it. Cottage cheese, which somebody in the health field tells you it's going to reverse cancer, has more casein than 87%. They're telling you eat cottage cheese to take cancer. That's like me telling you smoke cigarettes to get rid of lung cancer. But why would they tell you? Because a little information is dangerous. And people who get stuck egocentrically on some philosophy or theology and don't stay open every single day to new change are dangerous. Every day, Anna Marie and I get up and say, we hope we find something better than what we think we know. And if you're not doing that, you're dangerous. And you shouldn't be in the field of saying you're helping people. What you're doing is helping your pocketbook and making your life convenient. If tomorrow I find out there's something better, it will be in this PowerPoint and we'll be employing it at Hippocrates. Not because I think we have to do that. It's the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do. Research is coming constantly. I wish we had more time. Something that came out last week I've been waiting for my whole life without knowing it. They found out when a sperm and an egg come together and they measure the luminescence that comes from that, it will determine your lifespan. If it's bright and confined, you are meant to live longer. Northwestern University, 7th year of research. Amazing stuff is coming, so we've got to, I don't know what you've got to do. All I say is that if you put yourself in a position of saying that you are an authority, you better know what the hell you're talking about, or get out of the people's way because you're killing people. This makes me more angry than anything else. Redirecting even a portion of the grain used to fatten cattle would feed every hungry mouth on the planet. Once again today, big mouth Trump and all the others are out there yelling and screaming about, now he says he's going to get rid of the drought. What the hell? He's got a God complex? But he says, like he has a, hello, I'm Trump, God, you got to get rid of the drought. And people like this shit. Are people that dumb? I'm not sure. But nobody ever really addresses. They want to stop growing almonds. Do you know how much water is used in raising cattle? 1 pound of cattle, 1 pound of steak, which I used to eat 4 or 5 pounds a day, by the way. 1 pound takes 2,580 gallons of water to produce 1 pound. Nobody talks about that. How many of you saw the brilliant documentary called Cowspiracy? Write this down. If you haven't seen it, see it. This is a young kid who looks like a surfer from California. He went into the top environmental organizations in the world and pinned them against the wall and said, why don't you ever tell the truth? The reason we have the environmental problem is people eating meat and dairy food. Not that we're driving trucks and cars. Sure, I have an electric car, but my veganism for 45 years is my real proof that I'm an environmental person. Those of you you probably have nice sentiments. Sure, we want a better environment. I don't want to leave this world to my children and grandchildren. Well, are you still eating meat and dairy food? Because if you are, you're full of shit. It's that simple. We've got to get serious now. You think this is a tea party where you can sit around and have polite conversation at this point? Not only are you killing you, shortening your lifespan, suffering in the process, throwing the economy out of whack, but you're also destroying the earth in this process. How to cut sugar. Cut your tongue out. That's about it. I love meat. I gave it up one day. Meat means fish, chicken, turkey, pork. That's what meat is. It's all the same. Gave it up in one day. Loved it. Gave it up in one day. Dairy food, 3 years. 30 years to give up sugar. I just renamed my sugar. I don't eat white sugar. It's the only time you ever hear white things being bad. You ever notice that? Like white, bad. Yeah. But then I took up honey. Yeah. Oh. Then I moved to New England. I took up maple syrup. Now the new one for the raw foodies is agave syrup. The worst one is agave syrup. Agave syrup is 90% fruit sugar. What did I just say about fruit sugar 10 minutes ago? The worst. Okay. Xylitol. Garbage. You know what kind of sugar you should eat? None. And if you want to transition, stevia. What we know, my latest book, I don't know if you have any of those, Sweet Disease. I challenge you to read my latest book, because we write it in your face, clear, scientifically validated way. We know sugar feeds and creates cancer, inflammation, diabetes, yeast arthritis, insomnia, and most other diseases. Matter of fact, the way I wrote that book, every chapter is a different disease, and I give you the latest, best science on why sugar has part to do. How many of you knew, for instance, the nurse study, this wonderful study that was done in Boston, looked at nurses over generations? I was even stunned when I read this. Heart attacks and strokes. If you ate the amount the average person eats in a day, you double your chances of heart attack and stroke. And every gram more that you eat of sugar increases more heart attacks and strokes. Think of that. Now, how come I'm telling you this? Wouldn't it be to the government's benefit to basically say, by the way, it's costing us billions and hundreds of billions of dollars a year, $500 billion a year from heart attack and stroke? Wouldn't it be to their benefit to say, by the way, the sugar lobby is strong? As a matter of fact, the sugar lobbies in great part run nationally and internationally by two brothers that live in my neighborhood in Palm Beach County called the Fagul brothers. I know Italian, so I changed their names to the Fungul brothers. But guess who they donate to? They donate to the Republicans. They donate to the Democrats. If you told them you were a politician, they'd give you money. They have no allegiance. They have an allegiance to their own business. They're the ones that basically prevent you from knowing that sugar is the most addictive substance in the world. You say, oh, drug addicts. How many of you want to hear the latest study that was done at Princeton University? They actually hooked up people's brains with MRIs and put them on cocaine, put them on heroin, and put them on sugar. What was more addictive? 30 years it took me. I'm a health expert, by the way. I'm a health expert. It took me 30 years. So I get it. And you want to give yourself a disease? I'm telling you one of the ways to do it. Dopamine receptor sites trigger a rush of pleasure in the brain and body. Every time you eat something high in salt, sugar, or fat, you experience happy chemicals that create a pathway in your brain, thus resulting in a habit that leads to addiction. So it's perpetual. The more of this stuff you eat, the more you want of it. It's a cyclical cycle. Boom, 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 boom. And how about me and you? How many of you notice that? The more cookies you eat, I need more cookies. The more cake I eat, the more ice cream, I need it more and more and more, because it's a pleasure button you're hitting. And none of you, don't think you're strong enough to do it. None of you are saints. You're not strong enough to change it. Like when I smoked cigarettes, I got up to 3 packs a day. I didn't say I'm going to smoke less. I knew that wasn't my personality. I ate cookies, I ate the box. So I stopped cigarettes, I stopped cigarettes. And most of you are like me, by the way. When you're an addict, you're a flaming addict. So you got to cut it. And you're going to have to withdraw. And you're going to have to be brave enough. But the only way that you can do these things, give up the meat, give up the dairy, give up the thing, is basically honor and respect yourself. And you've got to change your what? Thinking and make good what? Choices. It's thought and choice, thought and choice. T&C, tender, loving care, thought and choice. That's the only way that you're going to change. Then I'll believe that you want to live longer. Before that, I think you're just talking out of your butt. Here's the cycle. You eat sugar, blood sugar levels go up, blood sugar levels fall, you need more sugar. People come to us 52 weeks a year. By the third day, overeaters like I was say, what's wrong? I'm not hungry. Because this is the highest protein diet in the world. The Hippocrates diet is the highest protein diet in the world. It regulates blood sugar. When you're eating the way the Americans eat, it gyrates up and down. When I give you protein, you're not gyrating, so you're not hungry. You're not really hungry. We need very little food. The other thing we do know, people who eat high-quality food like this in small amounts live longer and have less disease. You don't need food. You need regulation of blood sugar. Look at the teaspoons of sugar in this one. So zero sugar, you have 14 grams of bacteria in your intestine. You get up to 24, that's what the average American consumes a day, by the way. 24 teaspoons of sugar a day. You have one. You've wiped out 13 of your 14 bacterias in your intestinal tract. Now, by the way, I didn't stop at 24. I probably ate, and I don't know this to be a fact, I had to eat at least 50 or 60 or 70 a day. Because when I would eat a box of cookies, what do you think that has in it? And how many of you know that your government and governments worldwide now have let large multinational companies put synthetic opiates into your foods? It's not enough to get you hooked to sugar and salt. Challenge anything I say. I bring it on. Challenge anything I say. Who taught me that is the former head of the FDA, who got clean, Dr. David Kessler. Look it up. So when you go to fast foods and you buy potato chips and you eat cookies out of your grocery stores here or in Europe or in Canada, anywhere you go, there are synthetic opiates. You know what a synthetic opiate is? OxyContin, oxycodone, which we knew in 1860 was more addictive than heroin. Did I say 1960? In 1860. What is the number one way we have heroin addicts today? I just talked. Chlorella. Chlorella is an amazing protein food that fixes the DNA and RNA. You want longevity supplements? Don't buy deadly chemicals. Buy algae. The first life form on the planet was algae. We will never discover everything that's in that. But when I say the first life form, that was our ancestor. Everything that will ever come after that is in that. This is 52% protein. Some algae go up to 70% protein. Red meat, which I was conned into believing was a complete protein, as you notice, it doesn't have great protein in it. The way I chose to eat it, cooked, is not a complete protein. And most American boys and girls you see with these big bellies, it's protein deficiency. They just don't look like Ethiopian kids because they're not emaciated with big bellies. They're just fat with big bellies. Stevia, that's what you need. Buy one that tastes good. If you get the leaf that's ground up, it's horrible. It tastes bad. There is no diet that will do what eating healthy does. Skip the diet, just eat healthy. There's no diet that works. I'm telling you right now, diet doesn't work. Lifestyle works. Don't start a diet that has an expiration date. Focus on a lifestyle that will last forever. A lifestyle that lasts forever helps you last for what? We invest all kind of money. We have nice cars, nice clothes, nice homes. You know, some of you have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars invested. You don't think about your health. I'm with people that are billionaires often that are dying. None of that does them any good, by the way, when they're dying. Not one bit of that does any good. And they all say to me the same thing. I wish I had lived differently. I wish my choices were different. Don't get to the deathbed and start to make, amends. These are health insurance. I have health insurance for accidents too, but the most important health insurance I have is lifestyle. These are the original health insurance here. Now the best 6 doctors anywhere, and no one can deny it, are sunshine, water, rest, air, exercise, and diet. If it is important to you, you will find a way. If not, you will find an excuse. Stop finding excuses. It was nice to be with you tonight. I'll answer 2 or 3 questions, then we'll move to the next subject. Yes?
What do you think of the Dr. McDougall's starch-based diet?
Well, number one, Dr. McDougall, we have to give him a lot of credit. He was the first MD that made it big and told people not to eat meat and dairy. But it's certainly not a healthy diet. To tell people that you can sustain on potatoes, not a great diet. So the 4 things that you get in raw food that you don't get in cooked food are hormones, which help to prevent premature aging and disease, oxygen, which I just explained the importance to, phyto-chemicals, which I just explained the importance, and enzymes. Now, we don't have the time tonight, but a program I'm going to give tomorrow will describe this. It's in Davie. I think at 1 o'clock tomorrow I'm going to do a whole different program. Exciting one about energies and life force and all of that. Enzymes are what feeds the most important part of who you are, electromagnetics. And you don't get any of that in cooked food. Again, most diets, including the macrobiotic diet I was on, the vegan diet I was on, is not healthy. It's just they took away the really dangerous things. So if you want to be moderate, knock yourself out. I want to be extreme. Extremely healthy, extremely happy, and extremely long living. Okay, two more questions, yeah.
Well, I wanted to know about coconut water. That's my first question. What do you think of coconut water?
Well, every single week on our fasting day at Hippocrates, we give fresh, raw coconuts. So we have people go out and collect coconuts, and we give the water to them. Now, what do I think about eating the interior of coconut? Don't eat lots of it, because it's high in. Yeah. And so little bits, and if you're very athletic, if you say, I'm training for the Olympics, you could probably eat 2 of those a day. But as healthy as I am and as athletic as I, no, it doesn't. You have to remember that coconuts are the largest nut from the nut family. And it has a very, very small amount of carbohydrates in it, but the amino acids that are in it regulate that. So don't worry about it. The ones you may be talking about come from Thailand. Okay, yeah, that one is, by the way, not coconut water. That's condensed coconut water. So what they do is they take coconuts, dehydrate them, put the water in that, and add the dehydrated coconut to it. Never buy that brand again. Okay, there's several, and you can get raw coconut.
I have a coconut for you outside if you like.
I'd love it, thank you. But here in Florida, it's sort of silly we buy coconuts like that. Now, I do drink, not that brand, I do drink cooked coconut water, especially when I'm about ready to get on a long plane ride, because it hydrates me even if it's cooked. But the reality is, I drink raw coconuts all of the time. Go to the Cuban community here. Cuban. We have Cubans, they live here with us. Basically, go to their community. The Cubans, the Haitians, they basically have them, and for 50 cents a dollar, you go to the Cuban stores and they give you this. They're smarter than we are. Okay. Yes.
I have a question to the audience because I've heard Brian speak many times before, and each time it's a different lecture. So by the show of hands, how many of you would like to vote to invite Brian every year to the church?
Thank you.
Can you take one more question, maybe?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, because this is a local lecture for me.
Okay. I have a question over here on the aisle for you, Brian.
Thanks, Neil. This is good you're doing this.
Yeah, what about coconut oil?
You could have done one of these host shows,
What about coconut oil?
Not a lot of it. We did some work on that, Dr. Gabriel Cousins and I, and we realized that unless you're, again, a super athlete where you can burn this up and metabolize it, 3 or 4 tablespoons a week would be good. Now, what's in coconut oil that really scientifically valid, not that you can cook with it, because it's a carcinogen when you cook with it, is a mid-range triglyceride that helps dementia. Now, what does it much better than the mid-range triglyceride that you get about 0.25% when you eat it, to fill in the fat in the brain, is eat the blue-green algae. That's the identical fat the brain's made of. So every day we get up in our house, we take 5 types of algae. Matter of fact, the best algae now is grown in the state of Florida in man-made conditions. 70% has the exact fat the brain's made of, and that's called E3 Live spirulina. Now, if you're really interested in getting what you think you're getting in coconut oil, go ahead. Coconut oil is, again, what we always do is talk about what's in the tomato, not what's in the tomato sprout. What's in the coconut, because people know what coconut is, not what's in blue-green algae, because nobody knows what a blue-green algae is. So little bits of it, if you can burn it off, but don't start eating a lot, because it reduces oxygen.
Brian, I have one more question for you here.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Brian, for being here and all of your work over the past many years. I love all of your works. I have a specific question about fruit sugar, and if you're not consuming fruit as a decent source of your calories in a raw food diet, where are you consuming the majority of your calories from? Just because greens are so low in calories.
Yeah. One of the mistakes that people make, especially in the raw food community, the fruit advocates, which I was, 40 years ago, is that you need lots of calories. Now, starting in 1935 at Cornell was the first study. Now there's been 1,687 studies as of last month done that all came up with the same conclusion. So every study that ever said who lives the longest, Who has the least disease? 1,687 times in 29 countries said people who eat the lowest caloric intake with the highest nutrition. So it's a mistake to think you need lots of calorie. But again, if you, for instance, take a sunflower seed, it has fat in it. When you make it into a sunflower green, it becomes an essential fat. What energy that gives you is an amazing thing. And you're not struggling with a high-fat diet. It's an essential fat that feeds the brain and the body. If you look at, for instance, when I have skinny people, people like I became. Went from super fat to like this. It was a hard thing. I went home and told my mother, I've never felt better. I look like somebody from Biafra. She looked at me and said, the kid looks like he's going to die. And I finally realized, well, I needed to exercise, which I loathed. I hated exercise. And, that was the first problem. But the second thing is, somebody said to me, because you're on a raw diet, to slow your metabolism, you have to eat sprouted grains and sprouted beans. And they taste horrible. So what you do is you grind them up and you make them into burgers and dehydrate them, and cookies with stevia and cinnamon, and before you know it, you're eating these delicious things that slow your metabolism, that put weight on you. When you're overweight, you go away from those things and you eat lighter and watery. So again, the more greens you eat. But the concept, you need a lot of calories. This was my buddy Doug Graham, and he's unfortunately, in my books I write for the doctors and the researchers, I have a chapter on why we age so rapidly on fruit. You may want to take a look at some of the advocates of eating a lot of fruit.
How many calories do you recommend roughly?
Well, it depends upon the person. It's impossible to write that chart. If you're me, I'd need double of a person who's sitting behind a chair all day. If you're an Olympic athlete, they need double of what I do. That simple. So it's really an individual. So when we work with you with cyber scans and cross-brain and blood tests, and you bring things, then we can figure it out. So thank you so much for having us tonight. Yes. Be well.
So ladies and gentlemen, Brian Clement, we're so thankful to have you today. Next month, we have Michael Lustgarten coming from Tufts University. He did a TED Talk there, and he'll discuss age reversal. I'd like to mention the fact that the Church of Perpetual Life does not endorse any product, service, or political party or candidate. Just want to go on the record with that. I'd also like to ask, if I may, how you heard about the event tonight? How many people heard about the event because you received an email? How many people received an email? Wonderful. And how many people got a phone call to let you know about the event? How many people saw it on Facebook or in one of the social medias? How many people heard about it from a friend? And how many people received a text to invite you to the event tonight? Okay, wonderful. Did I miss anything? From the Hippocrates website, from the websites? Excellent, yes. Telegraph, huh? So, what I'd like to do is once again remind you at the exit table, if you haven't given us your email address, please give it to us so that we can keep in touch with you. You've signed up here this evening, and that's information that Hippocrates will be in touch with you about. But please stay in touch with us so that we can tell you about things. Now, we have another presentation, so don't miss this. I have another gentleman, one of the founders here of the Church of Perpetual Life, I'd like to bring up here. He's got a couple of things to say, just be a few minutes. Mr. Bill Falloon.
I want to give everyone who sat through this incredible lecture some incentives as to why you want to consider following at least some of those great recommendations, including getting rid of the beef, the cheese, the dairy, eliminating that as much as you can from your diet, and certainly incorporating those healthy plants. And the reason is we're on the verge, potentially, of reversing the aging process in human beings. But if we wind up succumbing to heart disease or cancer before that accomplishment occurs, well, we've missed the longevity boat. We've literally missed the boat because of our unhealthy eating habits. So we established this church, by the way, 3 years ago to accelerate the Creator's plan for mankind to develop technologies that will result in the transformation of life into an environment of perpetual abundance. Now that's what's in store for the future of children born today. This Time magazine cover last year, 2015, talked about children born in 2015. They're going to live a real long time. In fact, they're going to live a lot longer than 142 years that they projected on this cover. But you see, most of us in this room are way beyond being a young kid. We've got to do something to reverse the aging process. Good news is, lots of people are on the verge of making discoveries. This is the May 10th, 2016 cover of Forbes magazine. Now, I know a lot of scientists, a lot of people who are involved in aging research. About 10 to 12 of them have theories that may enable us to reverse aging. I did not even know this individual existed, and yet he's already funding research designed to reverse aging in human beings. These are the kind of individuals that we're looking at right now at this church who we hope will be able to reverse our aging process. But before we get there, we better keep ourselves healthy. Wall Street Journal reported the scientists doing the aging research are seeing such impressive results, they are self-experimentating. They're taking the identical compounds that they're using in the animal model, the identical procedures, they're doing it on themselves. I know a number of people doing this right now. They believe, and they understand it's premature, they believe they are seeing results. And they're not looking for a placebo effect. They're looking at blood biomarkers. They're testing themselves as rigorously as they would a lab animal. So we're seeing this consistently. Now, Albert Einstein, he's recognized for a lot of what we have today, but he's not fully appreciated from the standpoint of the fact we use GPS, we have cell phones, we have all this incredible communication. If it were not for Einstein's early work, we'd all be lost, according to the recent Wall Street Journal. We wouldn't have this technology if it wasn't for this individual discovering it. It just demonstrates the power of one individual to transform society in such a major way. And yet Einstein himself could not have predicted what the results of his early research has yielded us. All of these incredible communications abilities, the ability to transform ourselves and track ourselves, well, this has been a result of early work that Albert Einstein did. And the idea of nuclear energy, he said it wasn't possible. And yet, if it wasn't for Albert Einstein, we wouldn't have the nuclear energy. And it just shows you when someone is being pessimistic, even if they're an expert, they can't predict the future. They really can't. So I'd like to be more on the optimistic side. And so often, our technology is limited by what physical abilities we have. Da Vinci understood how to make a helicopter work, but there was no electric motor. He just couldn't do that. So he perceived it, but it wasn't doable in his time. Of course, once they developed the electric motor, we have something called a helicopter. It flies all over the place all the time. So in other words, what we perceive we can do today may not be possible, but we're confident it's going to happen. We're talking about indefinitely extended, healthy human lifespans. We believe that's going to be possible. Now, this is a little chart that shows you the challenges of every new medical discovery. It was always considered to be immoral, ungodlike. It had all kind of risks associated. And the most interesting one is the anesthesia. That was suppressed for many, many centuries. Certain religious faiths believed that pain and suffering were part of our duty, that we were supposed to suffer on this earth. That was part of the salvation or of our plan. And yet, when it was first introduced, the anesthesia, some people suffered, including this woman, not that long ago, 1591. She was burned alive for the crime of trying to mitigate the pain associated with childbirth. Back in those early days, not only did they feel that there was a divine obligation to suffer the pain, but the pain itself was psychologically beneficial. How many in this room would consider undergoing surgery without anesthesia? I mean, it would be ridiculous. Thank you. There are some people. Now, I've undergone medical procedures without certain anesthesia that aren't that painful, but I'm talking about real cutting. You appreciate the fact that people like this were burned alive, pushing a technology that people just didn't accept. And what Galileo had to go through, he was not burned alive, but someone 16 years prior to him being criminally indicted was, an individual named Bruno, burned alive in the year 1600. Galileo was allowed house arrest for his theory about how the universe worked. The church just didn't want to believe it. Volvo, they're building cars designed so that people don't die in those cars. And by the year 2032, we think most cars will be so safe there won't be people dying in car wrecks, including pedestrians, the way they are now. The radar, the computer will be able to avoid death by automobile accident. But what did the government do to the person who developed the first safe automobile. Well, of course, they arrested him because the big auto companies didn't want to have to compete with a safer automobile vehicle. They arrested Preston Tucker. They seized all of his assets. He won a trial. The jury said, "You're not guilty of anything." By that time, the government had taken everything Preston Tucker had developed in all of his factories. He was left penniless by virtue of the federal government. So when Brian talked about how the big monopolies in this country are suppressing the truth about healthy eating, you can document that in a lot of different ways. Historically, you just look at what happens to people who pioneer something. They're often criminally charged. Linus Pauling, he is somebody who has saved so many lives, and yet he was threatened with arrest, his passport taken away. He was considered a communist sympathizer because he was saying, you know, if you explode nuclear bombs in the Nevada desert, that radioactive fallout is not safe. It causes cancer. The government was outraged. Outraged that he would suggest that we stop testing nuclear bombs in the Nevada desert. And that's why they thought maybe he's a communist, because he was trying to give Russia the upper hand. Yet by 2002, the federal government admitted that the nuclear testing they did caused at least 15,000 American cancer deaths. Believe it or not, that is an understatement beyond comprehension. Though that radiation from those above-ground nuclear tests that spewed radiation through the northeastern United States, cows ate the grass, we drank the cow's milk or ate the cow beef. So many children died of cancers, either in their youth or as they grew older, because our government wouldn't listen to Linus Pauling. So this is how we're going to change. Change how the world views a technology that will reverse aging. They rejected all the other technologies. Anesthesia. They rejected bringing people back to life after they had a heart attack or drowned. They've rejected every pioneering medical innovation. We're going to make human age reversal not only acceptable, but an obligation. And if it could be initiated at an early age, a doctor who fails to vaccinate a child against aging, he'd be considered immoral. He'd be considered perhaps a criminal if he didn't stop that aging process in a way that that child never had to suffer the horrific effects of biological aging. Our objective is to reverse the human aging process. Before we can get there, we have to stay alive. And that's where the healthy eating patterns that was discussed for an hour and a half here, I hope, is going to sit in with people. The immortality update. A lot of you here don't understand, but our church, again, was set up to ascertain and disseminate information about how we can live longer, perhaps indefinitely. We have been the subject of persecution to the extent that when we go to a bank or a financial institution, they don't take our money. They think we're running some sort of a Ponzi scheme by suggesting that people don't have to die so soon. So we've had to fight a battle. And about 1 out of every 100 banks would accept money that people would put in trust funds to conduct scientific research in perpetuity. 1 out of every 100 people took the money. But the one area they would never accept responsibility for was reanimating cryopreserved individuals. They did not want to have anything to do with either maintaining those people or keeping them or enabling them to be reanimated. For the first time, I was alerted to this, by the way, just 7 days ago. A major financial institution in the United States is willing to take cryonics trusts, not only safeguard the assets, but also help to safeguard the patient. They're willing to make an annual inspection to cryonics facilities once a year to make sure the patient remains cryopreserved. And when a technology evolves to revive that person, they will participate in the reanimation decision-making process. This is the first financial institution in the world that's ever agreed to do this. It's a major breakthrough. I realize you never knew it was a problem before, but I'm letting you know this is just a way that society is transcending for the better. They're accepting the fact that we are going to defeat aging, and once we do that, people are going to say, hey, I don't ever want to die. I want to stay young and healthy indefinitely, and if something does take me out, I may choose cryopreservation, and that this financial institution is willing to guard both the cryopreserved patient and their assets. So we're on the verge of a medical renaissance. A conference in San Francisco that we're involved in, San Diego, excuse me, is August 4th through 7th, is called The Revolution Against Aging and Death. And the biggest problem we've had so far is that there are too many scientists who want to present their research at this conference. And the criteria is it has to involve human age reversal. There's too many scientists to fit in to the 2.5-day schedule. We're going to have to send reports to the people afterwards saying there were some other people who could have told you about some research. We just didn't have room for them. That's how far the technology has progressed. So I want to thank everyone for attending this service tonight. This is the largest crowd we've ever had. So we want to certainly... We want to certainly thank the Hippocrates Institute and Brian and his staff for educating us about how to avoid cancer, heart disease, and premature aging.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Bill Falloon. Some of you might like to know that Brian Clement will be speaking tomorrow right up the road in Davie, Florida at Your Big Picture Cafe. He'll be there tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So if you'd like to catch him again. And also he's downstairs. He'll be downstairs doing a book signing this evening if you'd like to talk with him privately. Thank you for coming, and we hope to see you again.